Test, 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 test. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, everyone. Hope you're all doing well. Hi, Saria. Hi, Howard. How you guys doing? Hope you guys are having a great weekend. Getting started in just a second here. Making sure I am all set up, which I think I am. Yeah. A little... I don't know if you guys have seen the Team 4-Star abridged, or Team 4 Stars Dragon Ball Z abridged, the scene where Cell is trying to set up the Cell Games arena, and there's always like one little thing that's just a little bit off, and he's like, let it go, it doesn't bother me, it doesn't bother me, it bothers me a lot, and then he blows it up. I feel like I've been having that experience setting everything up for the stream, where it's like, this is just a little bit, it's a little off center. If I could just move it just a little bit, but then it's gonna, everything else is gonna get off too, and it's like anyway, no big deal. I'm just trying to learn this new software, if I can figure out a better way to orient it. But of course, it's one of those things where it's like, the more I poke at it, the more it doesn't like being poked. There we go, that looks basically fine. Okay, yeah, that's fine. Okay, and then I have the manga up, the Narutopedia if we need it, and the Reddit post. So yeah, I think we're pretty much good to go. Heroes on. Yeah. Okay, I'll just do a little intro in a second here. But yeah, it's good to see you guys. Hope you guys have been having a great week. We had a nice, super fun stream on Thursday with Claire Obscure. I've been telling more and more people about it. I think I managed to finally convince one of my friends who usually hates turn-based RPGs to check it out, just based on the quality of the art and the art direction alone. So that's great. I'm trying to spread the gospel, so to speak. Sorry. Oh, hey, Luan, how's it going? Good to see you. Hope you're having a good weekend. Luan says, get some get some pockets, bro. What are you talking about? You mean to like hold all of my goddamn scans? Is this not organized enough for you? Man, it's been a whole experience getting this stuff online. On that note, I think I do actually finally have something coherent to talk about, although, you know, this is basically me the past few days. But it's cool. What's up? Not much, man. It's been pretty chill over here. You know, the weather is starting to turn towards the fall, which is my favorite season. I'm super happy about that. I've been trying to spend a little bit more time outside, trying to hit the gym, trying to just, you know, get away from screens. I say that as I'm about to describe how I spent a huge chunk of time this week trying to learn a little bit more about this stuff in front of a screen, but still, you know, trying to vary it up a little bit. You know, trying to do some house cleaning, just little things like, I'll be honest, I get overwhelmed with task mission creep, you know, just little things piling up, and so I've been trying to just look for little things to chip away at here or there, and it can be something as simple as like I've had this rug that's been rolled up in the corner of my house forever, and I just put it down, and it's like a tiny little thing, right? But now the floor looks different, and it, like, that thing is out of the corner, and it's not bothering me anymore. So basically just like looking for little victories here or there. It's been going okay. Trying to learn some songs from Deltarune on guitar. I fucking love that game. I've been playing it. Well, I haven't played games much aside from Claire Obscure in about a month or so, but the soundtrack, man, it's just incredible. So I've been trying to learn a little bit about that. That's pretty much it. You know, low-key, chill, work is okay, family's okay, everything's just kind of stable. I'm just looking for little things to improve on. And then with the Naruto stuff, you know, it's been a little, because I'm not great at setting limits for myself. I'm a little fatigued, honestly, because I basically skimmed through the entire series again over the past week or two. And so, like, my my head is reeling a little bit, but I did kind of walk away from the experience with a positive feeling about, you know, different ideas about the series. Hopefully I'm able to pass some of that on to you guys. Hopefully you guys find it somewhat entertaining. But anyway, how about you? How are things on your end? Hopefully everything's okay. uh the one says, I'm just saying stuff, but then there's a lot going on screen. Yeah, this is me. Oh, god damn it. This is a great piece of software for sketching things out, but also like you have to be very, very gentle with the, sorry if anybody has like motion sickness or whatever. You have to be very, very gentle with the zoom, because otherwise it will just freak out. Yeah, I'm gonna try to just leave it alone now. Thank you. Relax. Shit got me talking to maps now. But yeah, so I'm enjoying the ongoing trend of me taking like one sentence that irritates me in somebody else's video and turning it into like dozens of hours of research and whining. It's genuinely been fun. Oh, sorry, it says I'm only just now hearing you because the YouTube app sucks dino balls. Sorry to hear that. Yeah, it's you were still in a pre-stream screen. Oh, okay, that kind of sucks. Sometimes you have to just like shove it forward, I guess. Yeah, YouTube is like such a blessing and a curse, because on the one hand, it's like it's such an amazing platform when you think about all of the stuff you can access and the ways in which it can connect you to other people. And I guess like it makes sense that they need to sustain a stronger and stronger business model in order to keep up with like the server costs and all that, which must be incredibly high. But at the same time, it's like in order to do that, they've made a lot of concessions to quality, user experience, and stuff like the. I mean, I know you're having fun with it; it's not a problem, nothing inherently wrong or anything. But the the XP system there, I hear people are kind of upset about it in general because it's sort of changing the way that people are interacting on streams, and then there's like this new boost or something, like fans can choose to boost your streams or whatever, or boost your content, and then that's they're moving away from the way the current algorithm is selecting people to that, which a lot of people are upset about because they're, I don't really even fully know the full scope of it, but from what I've heard from other streamers, it's basically like they're trying to get fans to just stay engaged with the app, like farming attention for the channels they're subscribed to or something like that. It's like really weird. So here's hoping that stabilizes or whatever. Luan Jack says, I saw Sage's Kakashi Boruto era versus Jubidara poll recently, and damn, gotta say he's mastered the art of sound-based genjutsu, because how is Jubidara losing that shit? Okay, so, hang on a second, you're saying, oh, Boruto era Kakashi versus Jubidara poll. That's, I don't even know how that would work, because, so we talked about last time in the Kakashi Retsuden novel, there's a line about how Kakashi has, gained much power, like he's gotten vastly stronger. It's something like that, right? It's a pretty dramatic statement. It's like vastly stronger or massively stronger, something like that, since the end of the, or like since his days in Naruto. But he does some impressive stuff during Kakashi Retsuden, but what it is like he puts up a big ass earth wall around the or like a mud wall around this village, so that's pretty impressive. He manages to take out like 50 shinobi, like just kind of random fodder shinobi, but still without killing them, like incapacitating them. So that's pretty impressive. And then he does, I forget, he does something with Kirin, or not Kirin, with Raikiri. Like he does several Raikiri related feats, but it's nothing on the level of having a perfect Susanoo and zooming around and flying off Kamui Shuriken. Like, so I suppose my conclusion was that the strength boost that they're referring to is specifically referring to like at the end of, like, after the war arc, after the fight with Kaguya and all that, Kakashi is at X strength, and then that X strength at that point, from that point, is then increased into the Boruto era. And not that like the Boruto era Kakashi is way stronger than his perfect Susanoo Kamui Shuriken like version. So I don't know. I'd have to go and actually see his feats in Boruto in the anime, because obviously he's not in the manga, and see what feats Sage might be thinking of. But I don't see him like even like putting a scratch on Jubidara the way he is depicted in the novel. Maybe I'm missing something. Like I'm not super knowledgeable about that specifically, but that seems really weird. um, be curious if you have any thoughts on that. If you think that like I'm just unaware of the scaling or whatnot. Yeah. Other one says, sorry, I don't know what the fuck they're doing at this point. Why did I get a 15-second ad for a 1-minute video? Literally 1 minute. Yeah, that's honestly, that's better than it's been in the past. It has on occasion been even worse, which is not a fucking compliment. John YouTube, but yeah. We do an intro in just a second. Okay. Oh, the one says he also has literally no way to damage a 10-tailed Jinchuriki because they're immune to ninjutsu. Yeah, I mean, already Madara, when he had the Rinnegan, that's right, like, Rinnegan just absorbs ninjutsu anyway, right? So if it's Rinnegan Madara, then Madara was very, very clear that, oh, sorry, Axel, I'll move to the other thing for now. I'll explain the lines in a second. But it was very, very, very clear that, like he outright was lecturing the Gokage to try that they would need to hit him very, very fast and very hard with physical attacks. Like he repeated over and over and over to them that the ninjutsu was just categorically not going to work on him, and they were like straining to put a dent in him way before he took out the perfect Susanoo, at which point he just like destroyed them. And this was before he became the 10-tailed Jinchuriki and got like an additional buff from the Sage mode that he absorbed off of Hashirama as well. So, I mean, I would be genuinely surprised if there was an argument that Boruto era Kakashi could 1v1 Hashirama, let alone Madara, who scales above him at that point, like Jubi Madara, right? Oh, hey, I'm going to try to pronounce your name. I'm sorry if I mispronounce it. Please let me know. I want to get it right. Is it Fad or Faht? I'm sorry. Fad or Fade? I'm going to say Fad. Hopefully that's correct. Fad Ismail. Thank you so much for stopping by. Thank you again for sharing the video or like mentioning my name to Weeaboo Warrior. It looks like he checked out the video. He left me a really, really nice comment, which is awesome, especially since, you know, his debate was one of the ones that kind of inspired me to start streaming in the first place, and talking about his debate with Noodles. So it feels really, really great to be able to have that you know, connection after this time, and I appreciate you helping to make that connection. So thank you very much for that. I did see your messages in Discord. I'm sorry I didn't respond to all of them all at once, because up till the last minute on the stream I was still gathering scans and stuff, and I think you'll see why in just a second. So thanks for your patience there. But yeah, thank you very much once again. To answer your question, when do you think Minato's day starts? So this is something I think might actually be fun to do a stream on at some point. I've heard that people have this opinion that basically Minato is dazed from the moment he realizes that Obito is like he realizes Obito's identity, and that lasts until like Naruto fist bumps him later on. And I sort of agree with that. It's just the way that the daze is described is sort of weird. It's described as being a stupor, if I remember correctly from one of the translations. But a stupor kind of means that you're like almost like paralyzed or drugged, not literally, but you're kind of in this state where you're not really moving or doing anything. You're kind of checked out of reality, almost like you're in a coma or something. And that's not really what we see out of Minato. We see him be kind of like stunned for a second. We see him be like flabbergasted, to pick a random word, once he realizes the nature of Obito's identity. And then he kind of just doesn't do anything for a big chunk of the war, while, or for like that portion of the war anyway. He's kind of passive while like Tobirama and Naruto are the ones who are doing most of the work. He snaps out of it a couple of times to do some maneuvering, if I remember correctly, but he doesn't really do a whole lot of attacking. He has one moment where he's like, this is my chance, and he thinks about rushing forward, but I don't remember him getting a whole lot of work done. And then after that, he cheers up when he fist bumps Naruto. So I think it depends on whether or not you, like, how you quantify a mental amp or a mental nerf in Naruto. My opinion is that he gets like depressed, essentially. He's emotionally shocked and stunned and depressed once he finds out that Obito, like what his identity is. And from that point, he is no longer like cognitively at peak, but he's not actually totally in a stupor the way that people say. He's more just like kind of checked out. He occasionally like snaps out of it long enough to kind of reposition or whatever, but then it's not until Naruto fist bumps him. I think there's like specifically something in the data book or something like that that shows the two of them reconnecting and cheering him up, and then he kind of snaps out of it. So it's kind of like two questions, I guess. I'm sorry that it's kind of a jumbled up answer, but I guess the one question is like, when does it start and when does it end? Well, technically, according to like what we learn in the data books, it starts when he realizes who Obito is, and it ends when he does the fist bump. But then in terms of like how long is it nerfing him and how much is it nerfing him, that I think is a little bit more ambiguous. The kind of cheeky answer is he's in a stupor when he's in a stupor, and he's not when he's not. And you can tell when he's not because he's moving, because by definition a stupor means you wouldn't be moving around. So I'm of the opinion, though I could be debated otherwise, that he's not actually like totally mentally nerfed or anything like that the entire time. It's more that he kind of comes and goes. That makes sense. But again, totally happy to have a further discussion on that. I could definitely be convinced either way. Gonna catch up on chat a little bit over here. Let's see. Literally no way to damage. Oh, Axel, to answer your question. Well, first of all, Axel, it's good to see you. Thank you so much for stopping by the stream. A little disorganized today. But the reason why you are seeing the lines here is because today we're going to be talking. Yeah, god damn it, I have to stop doing that. It's so frustrating. So I have this software here that lets you kind of sketch and draw and label on certain images, and my goal was to try and draw routes between different places based on different parts of the series. So for example here, early on in the series, obviously we have the Land of Waves arc, and we have characters traveling from Konoha to the Land of Waves. I'll talk about whether or not this is an accurate location in a minute. We have characters like Sasuke traveling with Karin or with Suigetsu down to the Orochimaru hideout, etc. We have different characters around the Kazekage extraction arc potentially converging on the Land of Rivers. There's the travel between Land of Wind and Land of Fire for the Kazekage rescue arc, etc., etc. So I'll go over all these in more detail later. But the point here is to try to get a sense of the size and scope of the Naruto world by tracing the different paths. And if we can get a sense of how long one of these is, we can use it as a meter or yardstick or whatever to kind of calibrate how far everything else is. So if we determine that like the Land of Waves can be reached at a walking pace within Konoha, from Konoha within like a week, for example. It's not like a hard fact, just an example, right? But if we were to come to that conclusion, then that means that, okay, this over here is like walking pace times a week. So like how far can a person walk in a day on average? If you were to I'm just going to make up some numbers, right? Like if we were to say they could walk 100 miles a day, which is way too much, but whatever. 100 miles a day for 7 days straight with no rest. Okay, that's 700 miles. So that would give us a yardstick of about 700 miles from here to here. And then if we were, like the horse math from Sage's previous video, saying that like the distance between Suna and the Land of Fire, basing it on the math on the like distance that a horse could run in a given day, and thinking that it took 3 days, etc., etc. He used that to kind of get like a standard of measurement between the Land of Wind and Land of Fire. So as we talk through the various like travel feats, so to speak, throughout the Naruto continent, then we can talk about how far away each place potentially is, and then that will hopefully give us some insight into the overall size of the continent and the planet itself. Hi Worm, I wanted to say hi to you as well. I'm still catching up on chat, so let me try to get through these comments in order, but I hope you're doing well. Thank you so much for stopping by the stream. Hope you're having a good weekend. Saria says, same, I would click shorts and get a double ad. Like, what do you mean 2 unskippable ads? Fight me. Especially for something that could be like a 20-second short. That's insane, yeah. So we already talked about the days. Yeah, that just to be clear, that's also something that I want to research more. I'm not 100% sure. I know people have strong feelings about it. Sarius, Luan Jack says they're playing games and I'm not having fun. I don't blame you. It's really frustrating, especially when you settle into everything being like a certain routine and then they just like change it for no apparent reason. That's kind of crappy. Fadi Ismail says, no problem, man. Yeah, thank you. Thank you again. I really appreciate that. Okay, Worm. Hi. Hope you're doing well. As you can tell, I'm like a little over caffeinated this evening. I'll try and simmer down a little bit. Anyway, Worm says, hi John, do you ever plan to do another long form video like the Pain vs Itachi one that isn't a stream? Just wondering. So I am kind of torn about it because I'm really proud of that video. Obviously, it has its mistakes. It has things that I would have changed, but I put a lot of time and a lot of effort and myself into that video, and I like it and a lot, and I would like for there to be more of that on my channel. But to be honest, it wasn't like I wasn't healthy when I was working on that video. Like I was pretty pissed and kind of like hurt, to be honest, about my interaction with Noodles and how everything there went down. And I felt like this kind of obsessive urge to get that video out as soon as possible. And I felt in order to do it right, to do it justice, I had to really do a lot of research, which I like to do anyway. It's genuinely fun for me. But because of all that, and because I wanted to try to get it out like soon as well, it kind of consumed my life. Like I worked on it for like 3 months, and this is not like trying to flex or anything. I'm just like trying to remember the figures. It was something like 1,200 individual scans that I put into that video. I was using CapCut, which is a decent piece of software, but by the time I got to like the 2.5 hour mark, it was lagging so that every input I put into it would like delay for 1 or 2 seconds, and I didn't want to like restart everything in a different piece of software. So, you know, if I wanted to make a change to the transitions, like, oh, the transitions between pages are too short, I want them all to be a 1/4 second longer, then it would be 4 or 5 hours going through the whole thing, just adjusting every single key point, like, or whatever you call like the little animation keyframe things. And so at the end of it, I was just like really burnt out, and I don't regret doing it. I don't, not at all. I think I could definitely come back and do a similar video and have it be a healthier thing, but it would just take a much longer time. And I kind of weigh in my head like, okay, how many streams could I do in the time that it would take me to do that one video? How many shorts, how many shorter videos? What else could I be doing? And sometimes it seems like, you know what, this is the thing I want to do. Like I want to make another long, deep dive on a given topic and really just kind of like take 6 months even and really just give it my all and put it out there. And I might still do that. But then when I think about how much time and energy that's going to take away from other things, sometimes it's hard to feel like it's going to be not worth it, but just like just being realistic with myself about the amount of energy that takes. It's hard to think about that. What I would like to do right now is I would like to, and also like I know it's not quite the same because obviously like we talk about other stuff and it's not as like well edited and stuff like that. It's not edited at all actually. But part of the advantage of doing this stuff is that it lets me talk to you directly. And then also though, like I do want to say that I do quite a bit of research for this. Like I didn't reread it like every like line for line, but I did skim through the entire series over the past couple weeks. And then I read some of the novels and, you know, the like watched some of the anime and stuff like that. And then I've been doing research on this other thing I'll tell you about in a little bit, but like, so it is a lot of effort to do these too. So I don't know. My current plan right now is I want to do a short that addresses something in one of Sage's videos, and then I've been talking for like a year about doing a video about Avatar: The Last Airbender, which is a series that I really enjoy, and I'd like to do that video because that video would be about like 30 minutes long. It would still be a deep dive, it would still have a lot of like detail to it, but it wouldn't be like the fucking marathon that the Itachi versus Pain video was. And so once I've done that, I think I can kind of take stock and be like, okay, well, how much did that take out of me? Was I able to kind of manage that in a little bit more reasonable way? And then kind of go from there. I don't want to stop like hanging out with y'all and doing these streams though, so I want to make sure that I kind of like just try to find balance with everything. Thank you for asking though. Honestly, it's really nice to be able to share like how I feel about that and what it was like for me to work through that. it's definitely a positive experience. But yeah, if anybody listening to this is considering doing something simple, not simple, similar, please pace yourself. Like, like, oh God, please take your time, give yourself breaks. You know, like if you start to feel that the joy of it is getting sucked out, so to speak, then like leave it alone for a little while and come back later. Um, I very nearly like burnt myself out on the series at a certain point. I just was not enjoying it, and I had to kind of recenter. But yeah, I really like having it and up there on my channel. I'd like to do something similar. Out of curiosity, I would love to know: is there a subject that you would like to see a super deep dive into, whether it's like from me specifically or just something in the community, something that you know you wish people would do a deep dive on? I'd be curious if you have anything in mind, because honestly, like I'm I benefit a lot from suggestions. Most of my content is reactive. The avatar video is going to be purely just like I love this series and I want to talk about this thing. But a lot of what I do is like, oh, this debate irritated me, or this video that this guy made was irritating, and like I want to learn more about it and respond like that, right? Or even this thing is like really fun, I want to jump on it. Or the Dragon Ball stream that we did, that was Mr. Narrative who kind of suggested that. So, definitely open to suggestions and ideas. Yeah. Thank you for the question. I really appreciate it. Odd says, based, I agree too. So Tobirama upscale. Yeah, I think Tobirama, like, I do think that it's weird. When I came into the Tobirama versus Minato conversation, I was kind of convinced that the Tobirama arguments were, were a little facetious, because obviously Minato is God. Obviously Minato is like the fastest, best shinobi. Like, obviously, like you've heard it from people like Seth and Swag and whoever else, that he's like the supreme ninja who was hyped up to be a god at that point in the series or whatever. And so I just kind of like assumed that was true. But if you actually go back and reread his whole presence in the war, he doesn't really do a lot. Like he slashes through Obito, but Obito is already kind of kind of messed up at that point. He does show up and like teleport the Biju bomb away. Like that's extremely impressive for sure. And he does get himself in front of Madara's truth-seeking orbs and save Guy and all that. Like, there's things that he does, but I think he's pretty overhyped. And honestly, when you look at all of the different things that Tobirama does, like the feats that he pulls off, the tactical things that he comes up with, like that silent communication with Naruto to deliver the Senjutsu Rasengan to Obito's back. And then I think there's like a panel where Minato is not able to teleport a lot of people out, but then Tobirama, doesn't he say something like, "Don't worry, like I can keep up, like I'll take care of them, I'll protect everybody," or something like that, right? So like Tobirama is doing a lot of heavy lifting, and I think he doesn't get enough credit for his accomplishments versus Minato's accomplishments. Not that Minato is like fodder or anything, but I think the narrative got skewed pretty heavily in his favor, and Tobirama got underrepresented over the years. So yeah, that's just kind of how I feel about it at the moment. But yeah, Saria says Minato could just be depressed sometimes. Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. The same thing happened with Kakashi. I don't remember the exact chapter, but like when Obito first reveals himself to Kakashi, Kakashi has a fucking panic attack, and he like collapses on the ground, and he's like in complete disbelief. So it's a shocking thing, and rendered all the more so shocking because shinobi are obviously supposed to be in control of their emotions and blunt their feelings. Obviously that's something that doesn't really happen amongst all shinobi, and that's a big part of like Sai's arc as well, as like learning to feel things and all that. But yeah, that's sort of an underlying current, and at the end of the day, despite all that, like he's just shocked, he's heartbroken, he's crestfallen, and it takes Guy like literally and figuratively picking him up and sending him back into battle before he can like kind of confront the harsh reality of it. Worm says you should definitely be proud of it. Oh, thank you. It's I think it's an amazing breakdown for one. Thank you. That really does mean a lot. I really appreciate your kind words. And now and in the past, it's been very encouraging. I admit I was pretty nervous about putting it out at first. I didn't really know what reception it was going to get, but people have been super chill about it, and I'm very grateful for that, genuinely. Worm says, topics I like, very much interested in Minato, Tobirama, and Obito, especially Obito. He's my goat. Yeah. Sage has a good breakdown of the Minato Tobirama arguments, but I feel like there's still more to be looked at. Maybe that's something I'll take a look at honestly. It's something that keeps coming up, and it's one of those things where I'm like, I don't want to touch this because I don't know all that much about it, but I feel like that's a good opportunity to learn some new stuff. So yeah, I'll keep that in mind as an idea for a stream, and then we can kind of talk about it together and like on air, so so to speak, and see how that goes. And if it's something that is it, it usually, if there's something there's a lot of confusion about, then that's something I'd like to dive into deeper. Honestly, one thing I might consider making a video about would be just like the geography and the cosmology, like all the stuff that we've talked about recently. I think, was it Luan who was mentioning that there's still quite a bit of misunderstandings about Kaguya and all that. It'd be kind of fun to do like a deep dive video on like, here are the misunderstandings in Naruto, or like the myths in the community that I want to do like a Mythbusters on, right? Some of the stuff takes a long time to go through. Like we did how many, 3 or 4 fucking 4-hour streams on multiversal Naruto. So stuff like that might be cool. I really like it if my videos can be a frame of reference, or like a source of reference. I don't know how to call it, but if it's like a good compilation of information that other people can then point to later if they need to look something up, that's kind of what I hope for it. So maybe that would be a good thing to talk about. Worm says, and then Obito is just in that sphere as well because of fighting Minato, and then he gets Rinnegan and slanging it on KCM2 Naruto. Yeah, absolutely. Not to represent his power, for sure. That's great. Hey, Dr. Strangle, how's it going? Hope you're having a good weekend. Yeah, not much is going on so far. We're kind of just hanging out. Pretty soon we're going to start talking about some Naruto world building stuff and some more geography and all that. So hopefully you guys will enjoy it. I think we got a pretty fun stream planned tonight. Relatively chill. I'm going to be talking about, like, trying to get some arguments together in the form of a debunk, I suppose. There's going to be a little bit of that. But a lot of it is going to be more what I was talking about at the end of the stream last night, and just kind of going through the series and being like, hey, look at this. This is cool. Look at the way that Kishimoto's building this place, or look at what he's telling us about his world. And really, for whoever finds this or whoever's listening to this, my hope is that it will kind of encourage you to go and just kind of keep an eye out for these things as you're reading as well. So there's a lot of little things that I think we have a tendency to kind of either forget or just not really focus on when we're doing power scaling. But obviously, the world that Kishimoto created supports power scaling, but it wasn't specifically made for us. It was made as a fantasy world for people to enjoy in general, right? So it's fun to kind of look at what he did to bring that world together. And also, maybe this is just me, but I feel like ever since I started doing this, I've gotten better at noticing other things in other media, in terms of how other people do world building as well. Like watching some Star Wars stuff with my partner recently, trying to keep in mind how far apart the planets are and what means of transportation, or Avatar. Like I'm watching Legend of Korra. I'm almost through season 4, and trying to keep in mind, like, okay, how long does it take characters to get across the continents, and what methods of transportation do they use, and like do they need to pack supplies, and how do they survive on the road or whatnot. Those little details can add so much to your world building, and it's really cool to see how different creators approach solving those problems, so to speak. I think, Luan Jack says, I think I think ranking the Biju and Power would be interesting. Yeah, that would be a challenge, a really interesting challenge, because we don't have a lot of feats within the manga for a lot of the Biju, especially Chome and like Saiken. We have a couple, but and Kokuo as well. I think I would want to include anime continuity in that evaluation. I'd want to watch all their anime fights as well, because there's just more to work with there. And I know some people might dispute whether or not that's truly canon, but there's just more content there. Like I wasn't aware until recently that Utakata fought against Pain, and I saw a clip of that, and that was really cool. So, yeah, I'd want to do a bit more research there, but it could be a lot of fun. Fad says, sorry, Fad says, there is also the panel where Tobirama makes an attempted blitz on Madara, and he reacts by flinging the kunai. And what I think at that point was Tobirama's strategy to make Madara lunge forward to make it harder for him to dodge. And what I speculate is that Madara used limbo there. Oh, interesting. So you think he was, he anticipated that Tobirama was going to try to do like that from a blind spot attack, which I think he says something along the lines of it's just in your character to attack an enemy when your enemy thinks they've won or something like that, right? So he's waiting for that, and then he used limbo or something like that to avoid the attack. That's a good point. Go look into that some more. Dr. Strangle said rewatch last week's stream and the horse taking 30 minutes to get to 600 meters or 3 kilometers per hour just killed me. Yeah. So yeah, I was listening back to it too because I wanted to check the audio and like see if I made any, like how silly my arguments were. But yeah, I mean, that it's just important to take into account like the terrain and all that. So for people who missed last week's stream, basically the argument was that there's a character's trying to get a distance of 300 meters away, and he says that it would take him like half a day on a horse. But it's only 300 meters away, right? So that would mean that the horse would be really, really, really slow if he were just going 300 meters in a straight line. Obviously, the reason why it's going to take him that long is because he has to go through this long, circuitous, winding path because they're in a mountain range, and the mountain range is really harsh. There's all these like frangible, like breakable rocks that like shatter and are really difficult to climb up. So yeah, that's why there's a long path around, and this was all part of our discussion of travel between Redaku and the Land of Fire. Redaku is a place that's mentioned to be in the far west of the Land of Earth, and it's the location for Sasuke Retsuden and I forget what it's called, like not the Scarlet Spring, but Uchiha and the Heavenly Stardust, like that manga as well. So basically the idea is that Sage of Thick Calves was using a calc based on a straight travel distance, a straight travel path rather, from these two places. And I was like, well, you can't really do that because the terrain sucks. It's gonna take you longer to get there. But anyway, that's a whole other discussion. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm glad you enjoyed it though, yeah. 0.3 kilometers per hour, yeah. That's one fucking deliberate horse. Horse is actually just a big ass snail that somebody's trying to ride on. Thinks it's a horse. Worm asks, what have you been watching in Star Wars? I still need to watch Andor Season 2. I hear it's super good. I think Star Wars has some pretty good hyperspace world building and explanations. Yeah, I actually watched Season 2 of Andor. That's what I saw recently. And then I enjoyed it so much. No spoilers, but I enjoyed it a lot. And so I went back and started rewatching Season 1. But then my partner and I realized that we'd never actually seen Rogue One. And so we just watched that last night, actually, in order to kind of see the I don't know, I don't want to spoil anything, but like that part of Cassian's story. And I thought I saw something else recently as well. Kind of blanking on it. I tried to get into the Obi-Wan miniseries, but I didn't really get very far. I just I don't know how to describe this, but it kind of felt like Ewan McGregor was always looking at something off screen that wasn't there. Like I kind of just pictured him in a big room with a huge green screen and just nothing else there, and they were just rendering all the backgrounds in Unreal Engine, and I was like, oh, okay. It was sort of hard for me to get into, honestly. But yeah. The one Jack says, oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I forget who it was. I think it might have been, no, I'm sorry. One of you shared with me this quote about Darth Vader looking into hyperspace and how it was this like teeming mass of chaos and like the primordial energies of the universe or something like that, and normally people who looked into it might be driven crazy, but he just kind of like looked into it and enjoyed it, like got off on staring into the chaos of the primordial void or whatever. I'm sorry, I can't remember who shared that with me, but I remember hearing that and being like, oh, that's cool, I want to learn more about hyperspace in this universe. But yeah, I'd be curious if you have seen any other good Star Wars stuff that you'd care to recommend. I kind of want to check out the recent Star Wars games. I tried them a little bit, but haven't gotten very far in them. Apparently, Outlaws was like decent, but we were talking in the Discord the other day about how like apparently the the Lego version of the recent there's a recent Lego Star Wars game that apparently has like more detail and quote unquote brutality or whatever than the recent Outlaws game. It's kind of crazy. Let's see. Mr. Narrative, hey, how's it going? Thank you so much for stopping by. How's your weekend going? Yeah, we're just still kind of talking. We're going to be starting with the quote-unquote scaling of the continent in a little bit here. I hope you're doing well. We were just talking about that Dragon Ball stream a little while ago, too. The one we did a few months ago. Worm says, also one other thing I'm interested in is that line with the Biju scaling, which I also like, is Killer Bee's growth within the War Arc, which Thunder God covered very well in his Arc Rankings Part 3. Oh, cool, yeah. I still haven't gotten around to those yet. I gotta check those out. I did see his video on the light speed scaling the other day, and I think you guys probably know that I disagree heavily with the light speed scaling. I really don't think Naruto characters are light speed, but I know that I'm in the minority there. I know that like most people kind of agree on the consensus that they are. So I wasn't like mad about it or anything. I think he did a really good job of going over the topic in general and providing like, here's a list of arguments, and here are their summaries, and like here are maybe some problems with them. I disagree with a lot of the points made, but it's kind of nice to be able to like disagree with somebody but still be like, yeah, I see where you're coming from, and I appreciate the effort that you put into like putting this all together. So I think it's worth going and checking out that video if you'd like an overview of the topic. Like, shout out to Gigi. Rogue One. Oh, Worm says Rogue One, I think, was a great movie. Love to hear it. Yeah, it was really intense. It kind of kept. I was pleasantly surprised by the amount of depth that they went into and like the places they took the story to. I liked the characters a lot. My only complaint was I actually wish we spent more time with some of the characters. Like, I forget what his name is, but the blind dude with the staff and his friend who's like the heavy machine gunner. Maybe I just missed it or I wasn't paying attention, but I didn't learn enough about their backstory. You know, it kind of felt like they might be comic book characters or characters from the extended universe that were brought in as opposed to like brand new characters that we got to really get to know. But I understand that the movie also had like two different versions, right? Like it was one way and then they cut and they re-edited and changed a whole lot of stuff. So honestly, if that, I wonder what it would be like if they remade it as season 3 of Andor and they just kind of had Cassian not be as big a part of the story until the end, maybe like the last 3 episodes, but then the episodes leading up to it were like getting deeper into the backstories of those other characters, including Jyn Erso, and learning a little bit about her backstory. Or maybe it could be her own her own series. It would be like Erso instead of Andor, and then it could kind of converge together and they could like retell parts of the movie. I think that would be really cool. Let's see. Sorry, it says I'm simply in the void. Why does that sound so familiar? Is that something that one of the Koroks says, or did you just come up with that? I'm just kind of curious. Worm says Lon Jack's the TG vid. Basically, according to TG, B's growth takes him pretty far, like beyond A4. Oh yeah, I think it's pretty closer to the Edo, Itachi, Pain, KCM1 level. Yeah, I think he seems to show some relativity to those Edo Akatsuki members, although it is kind of weird that he just lets himself get strangled by Nagato using the Asura path, but of course he wasn't using his full strength. I guess you could argue that just because he had the V2 cloak ripped off him, he was probably recovering or something like that. That is a little weird, but I mean, like, the Biju tailed twister took out 6 Edo Jinchuriki at once, and then he was able to restrain them all simultaneously with the ink octopus hold thing until Obito forced them all into V2. It's not really his fault that he can't hold all 6 of them in V2 back with one sealing jutsu, but he goes toe to toe with Ten Tails when he's in that like little chibi 8-tail form and like shoves a fucking Biju bomb right in his eye. I mean, he does some crazy stuff. So yeah, and also, like, think about how crazy it is. Like, he has his own Biju bomb flicked back at him, Gyuki takes the hit. He gets all bloodied up and like bruised and stuff, and he has to go recover. But even though he doesn't have like Kurama's healing factor, within a few minutes, maybe an hour or so, he's back at it and he's fighting the Ten Tails again. I mean, he still recovers really quickly, and he does some really impressive shit after that. So, yeah, I mean, his growth is pretty crazy. Let's see. Mr. Narrative says, I'm doing great. Oh, it's going great. That's wonderful. I'm really glad to hear that. He says, yeah, bro, I'm researching a lot about Dragon Ball and Goku's power scaling. Dragon Ball might be more powerful than I thought. Interesting. So yeah, how hard do you think it goes? I was under the impression that based on, Dragon Ball Super, that Goku's basically a demigod, right? Like I'm trying to remember from Sage's video, like when he clashes with Beerus, it's creating enough, like large enough shockwaves to threaten to destroy the universe. I think I might have some quibbles with that particular interpretation, but I mean, I think there's clearly enough there to suggest that he's capable of destroying multiple planets, even galaxies at a distance, right? Like, I mean, Cell said that he was going to destroy, like he had enough power to destroy the galaxy. Whether you think that means in one giant blast or like planet by planet by planet, I mean, he still has that latent power, and I guess, what's it called? Ultra Instinct Goku must be like extremely more powerful than that. So I wouldn't be surprised if it gets up to crazy levels. I wouldn't put him at fucking boundless though, but I'd be curious if you get him anywhere near there. Worm says TG's rankings of part 3 is of a length to rival your Itachi versus Pain video. He put us all into that one. Okay, if for nothing else, then I'm gonna have to check that out because like I respect that amount of effort. I've been shying away, I guess, a little bit from ranking content lately because I don't want to like, there's no specific reason actually. I think that like ranking stuff usually doesn't appeal to me as much because I'm kind of like, yeah, sure, like just you can rank your favorite characters however you like. It's more the overarching arguments about like, okay, if you're going to put Kakuzu over Pain, that's a pretty spicy take, so how are you going to justify that, right? Like I want to understand why that is, and if your arguments are something along the, not you specifically, right, more Noodles, but if your arguments are something along the lines of, oh well, she's a perfect Jinchuriki, Yukito's a perfect Jinchuriki, which means she's stronger than every other Jinchuriki who's not perfect, and Kakuzu beats her, and that's just better than Pain. If it's something like that, if the arguments are kind of ratty, then, or wormy, no, okay, hang on. So, as a quick aside, sometimes I'll say, like a worm type argument, or somebody's being wormy. That's not worm with a Y. It's not like, dragon-y. It means like some people act like, I don't know, people say like they're ratting, they're using rat type arguments or whatever, and I feel like rats get too much of a bad rap. Rats are actually really cute and intelligent, so being ratty is actually a good thing. So if you hear me say wormy sometimes, it's not like throwing shade at you or anything. It's just, I'm trying to find, it's hard to find an animal that actually like is just useless and toxic, I guess, to just use as like a, hey, this animal, if you're acting like this animal, it means you're being a little bitch. But I guess worms don't really do much. If you have a better suggestion, let me know. I just need a word that means like making a totally vapid argument and being an asshole. So, yeah. As I was saying that, I thought maybe we had this conversation before. Okay, as long as we're on the same page. Yeah. It's hard to actually find, like most animals actually do at least one thing useful. Anyway, TG Thunderfrog here. Yeah, I love that logo. It's really charming. Let's see. Fod says, I sent you a blog about today's topic on Discord, which is very interesting and would spark some discussion. Awesome, yeah. So I tend to keep Discord shut during the streams because otherwise I will just like, every time a notification comes up, I'll be like, ooh, look at that. Like I'm like a dog looking at squirrels. So I'll save that for after the stream. But yeah, please feel free to send me anything you'd like me to follow up on or to comment on later. Genuinely, really do appreciate the suggestions and the follow-up. So thank you. Dr. Strangle said TG really didn't go over any of the objections about some of the faster than light statements, even ones that even a pro FTL fans would bring up. Interesting. Yeah, I'd be curious to hear if you have any objections. I mean, you know my stance on it. I'm not not a big fan of the FTL arguments in general, mostly because I think it's like, I mean, and I appreciate you, by the way, like in that VC with Sage, I appreciate you trying to help clarify like the reliability issue and not just assuming that it's true unless there's a reason to think it's hyperbole. It's really difficult, at least for me, to articulate why the data books shouldn't just be accepted at face value, especially since people are really attached to them. And I'm not trying to gaslight anybody or saying like you can't be, but there's just this heavy bias, I think, towards just assuming that it's safe to take them all at face value, and getting around that and having a productive conversation can be really difficult, because it's like, well, why would you question that? Everybody already knows that it's true, so it's tough. But yeah, still fun. The one says, I feel like Blood was just yapping towards the end of the vid. Dr. Strangle, I didn't learn anything new that I haven't learned before, but I guess I was hoping for a little too much. Oh, it's a shame. Are you referring to the ranking video or the Lightspeed video? I mean, like, yeah, I'll save the Lightspeed bias. I am gonna do a fucking Lightspeed stream eventually, so we'll see. Mr. Narrative says, if you combine both anime and manga and guides plus supplementary material such as movies and author statements, it gets crazy. Base Goku might solo 99% of fiction. Okay, I'd be curious to hear the arguments, man. I think I mentioned to you in Discord that I'm not gonna buy into the 4D movie arguments, like the Universal Studios movie arguments, for reasons I'll elaborate on at great length, I'm sure. But yeah, I'm not up to date on all the super GB Super stuff, so yeah, I'd be very curious to learn more. The one says Outerversal Otherworld. Oh boy, okay. Well, I'll refrain from commenting. I don't want to discourage, genuinely, I don't want to discourage anybody from like doing research and stuff. I don't know that much about Dragon Ball. I didn't like the 4D movie shit, but we could talk about that separately. Worm says, oh yeah, we talked about that. Okay, among other things. Oh yeah, dolphins. Yeah, so dolphins can be genuinely wonderful creatures, but they are also capable of despicable, horrible things. So I mean, kind of like humans when you think about it, unfortunately. But yeah. Dr. Strangle says, the one Jack, same. Okay. Worm asks, what public Discord servers are you in? Okay, you were in Sages, but left recently. Any others? Actually, I kind of left quite a few that I was in. I'm in the Walkie Talkie podcast one, and I'm in, I forget the name of it, but somebody here invited me to this Discord where folks are making like this huge archive of different like Naruto scans and stuff. And I think that's pretty much it at this point. Oh, I'm in like in Hamz's, like there's a streamer named Ham666 who I like a lot. I'm in his Discord, but that's pretty much it. The problem is, not that I have a problem with any other Discords, like Blanco invited me to Billy's Playground. The folks were nice there. I was in Miyoboku for a little while, but the problem is that I get so wrapped up in the conversations and arguments and stuff like that it just takes over so much of my time. It's kind of like the equivalent of playing World of Warcraft or whatever. Like I just can't I can't ever sign on to World of Warcraft again. Otherwise, that's all I'm gonna do for all my free time. You know what I mean? So I'm still happy to talk to literally anyone from any of those servers, even mortified. I'd be happy to have a one-on-one conversation, or to hop into VC with people for a short time or whatnot. But yeah, I need to kind of scale back the number of servers that I was in and really just kind of focus for a little bit. Also, I will say that Sari and I have talked about this, but I felt that in Sage's server there was some honestly some racism, ableism, homophobia that just wasn't getting checked. And I understand that for some people it was just a joke. It was just saying edgy things for the sake of saying edgy things. It wasn't really racist or really homophobic. It was just trying to be edgy and blow off some steam. And I get that. It's not. I just at a certain point I was like, okay, I'm not gonna stay here and try to police this and tell other people how they can and can't have fun. But at the end of the day, I myself don't feel comomfortable here. And when I bring that up, I'm just kind of made fun of for it and not taken seriously. So am I going to stay here and try and debate other people into caring more about this? Or am I just going to take a step back and, stop causing a scene? And I decided that would be the best thing to do. But yeah, definitely I miss some of the conversation in there. There's a lot of nice people. Met Saria in there, met Dr. Strangle in there. I think probably some other folks on here. I'm just not remembering everybody. I apologize. But I've also gotten, great help from people in Sage's server in particular for translations and for scaling stuff. And so it kind of sucks. But, again, it's one of those things where if I'm honest just about my own mental health and my own amount of time spent, I just had to be I'm open to joining nice communities, but I have to also like just be aware of my own limits in terms of um, conversations and stuff like that. So anyway, let's see. Dolphins are evil. Public Discord servers. Yeah, but the what I think it's called Walkie Talkie Podcast, the one that Ood's in, seems pretty nice there. Dr. Strangle says just simple stuff like character X and Y have light speed statement. Well, X and Y are obviously different speeds. Yeah, and there is a little bit of goalpost shifting too, where it's like somebody will be like, this is a clear and objective light speed feat. And then I'm like, well, here's maybe why that's not the case. And then they'll be like, oh, actually, I just meant that this character can, like they'll say, okay, this character can move at the speed of light, just categorically. And I'll be like, well, here's an example of them not moving at the speed of light. And they'll say, oh, well, that's just movement speed. I was talking about combat speed. Come on, catch up, John. Movement speed and combat speed are totally different. Like, yeah, they are. You can scale them differently. Some people have, like, movement amps that only apply to traversal speed, and they're not really practically useful in combat. But then it kind of winds up being a big, like, Ouroboros, like a big circle, right? I'll go to one thing and be like, hey, here's the character not moving at light speed. Oh, well, that's just because they were tired. Okay, what about over here? Well, that's just because they were holding back. Okay, well, can you actually show me the character moving at light speed? Well, it's verbatim stated in the data book. Okay, but, like, that's great and all, but how do we actually put it in context? And it gets a little frustrating. Not calling anybody out, I don't think it's anybody's fault. It's just like, because some of these perspectives are so entrenched, it winds up being like this big, like, rotating, like, Ferris wheel of arguments, and then we just never get anywhere. You know what I mean? I'm sure you've seen that kind of stuff happen too, right? Anyway, the one Jack says, I don't know about that. Mr. Narrative says, I'm open to it. Yeah, that's cool. Hey, Darth Magog, how you doing? Hope you're having a great weekend. Darth Magog says, I assume people take statements in data books at face value because they can't be arsed to do the math themselves. As somebody who can't be arsed to do the math myself either, yeah, I think that is the case. It's, well, to be fair, when I started getting into the Naruto community, like the, power scaling debating side of it, I knew nothing about any of this stuff. I had just watched some of the anime and read the manga, and so when I started listening to people like Noodles and Swag Kage and Seth in their debates, especially the ones where they went up against people who weren't really debaters, like Kabuki and Afro Senju and all that, I kind of just got the impression that, like, okay, these people have big Naruto channels. They obviously know what they're talking about because they're speaking so confidently, and they keep referring to these things called the data books. And when they say something about the data books, everybody else turns around and is like, oh yes, the data books. Yep, I forgot about that. Yep, that's true. And so, like, okay, so clearly these are established things that everybody already agrees on. I mean, they're called data books and they're full of data, right? And so for the first year or so, I just kind of agreed with all that stuff by default. And then it was only when I had to, like, I started questioning some things in one, like, it might have even been something as simple as I was listening to a Noodles debate and he said one thing that was like, wait a minute, I'm not sure about that. That one I'm not willing to agree to that. And I went and looked it up, and then it just kind of like was the first crack in the dam, so to speak. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. This databook statement was quoted incorrectly. Maybe I should go read the databook. Oh, okay, I read like this one page, but something seemed fishy here. Maybe I should read 10. Maybe I should read the whole thing. Maybe I should read all of them. And then when I got to the end of reading all of them, I was like, what the fuck is everybody talking about? Have you guys actually read these things? Like, I don't understand why there's such a complete disconnect in the way that these books are being interpreted. But I think that, I can empathize directly with what it's like to kind of come into the community and have everybody basically be in consensus about this. So if, like, one motherfucker starts talking up being like, no, you can't use data books, guys. Like, I'm smarter than you. Like, it kind of just feels like I'm coming forward and saying, like, hey, I'm right, you're all wrong, you're all dumb, you didn't get it. It can feel kind of I guess insulting, or it can feel at least a little bit edgy, like I'm just trying to stir shit. I promise I'm not. Like, I just think there's a misunderstanding that I want to try to clear up. But I also understand, like, it's totally fair. Just being honest here, factually speaking, some of the largest names in the community have misrepresented the data books, and then that has gotten cemented in everybody's, like, heads. And now we're in an unfortunate situation where it's kind of hard to correct that because of how long that's been the case. Hopefully that makes some sense. I would like to learn how to do the math. At the moment, I'm like a math idiot. Like, I was trying to literally just do how long does it take a horse to go like 300 meters in 6 hours the other day, and I couldn't do it. Whenever I try to do math publicly, my brain just fucking freezes. It's always been the case. I used to love doing math. I took calculus in high school, and I used to do some of that for astronomy courses I took in college. I fucking lost all of it. It's all gone. Especially if I try to do it in public, I just shuts down. But that's my goal for the next stream. I want to learn how to do ang sizing and do some calcs of the curvature of the Earth for next time. So we'll see. Oh, sorry, SS. Oh yeah, I love the rapport. Guess human can be the bad animal. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's not fair. There's some good humans here. You know, there's a couple good humans here. I wouldn't want to throw everybody under the bus. The one Jack says it's just that to get to Outerversal Otherworld, it relies on the databook statement and translation of Japanese, which I feel ignores the context of the series. Not even getting into the headache of canon. Yeah. Well, that's the biggest problem. Is like you can find a databook statement or a quote from a character or something from to support basically any perspective. If I wanted to, I could probably find something. Actually, you know what? Here's a good one. Let's just do this. This is my favorite feat in the whole series. We should talk about it every stream. Sometimes we do. This is in chapter 1 of Naruto, and this is about halfway through. And here we go. We have Naruto goes in to steal a scroll from the Hokage, and the Hokage is verbatim stated to be the strongest in the entire village, who knows all the village's jutsu. And the Fire Nation, or sorry, not the fucking Fire Nation, the watching Avatar, the Land of Fire is specifically, or the Konoha Gakure is verbatim stated to be the strongest ninja village. And so Naruto literally one-shots the strongest person in the world, other than like, I don't know, maybe Itachi or something, and Orochimaru. And what? No, I'm doing the wrong thing. I'm putting context. Okay, just based on this panel, just based on this scene, right? A canon verbatim feat, so to speak. Naruto is Kage level because he one shots the Hokage, right? So there you go. What's that you say? We should put this into the context of the medium itself and be like, this is clearly a gag because of the nosebleed thing and like the expression on his face. What's that you say? We should keep in mind that this is just the first chapter of the manga, and like there's plenty of stuff still being explored in the ninja world, and there's retcons later. No, you're using context. You're not allowed to do that. Obviously, I'm joking, right? But anyway, context is important. Darth Megog says, I hate combat speed and attack potency. Interesting. So intuitively, I think let's think of like an ability like I don't know, Sonic. If you're familiar with Sonic the Hedgehog, right? Like he is, or actually, I don't know. I'm trying to think of. Actually, can't think of anything. But just imagine that you had a character like I don't know, let's say Kawaki in Boruto, who is able to charge up his energy, charge it up, and then release it, and then he basically starts like skyrocketing and just tears off like a rocket. And in doing so, he can travel as fast as a lightning bolt, right? So he just like tears ass across the planet. But in order to do that, you know, he can't stop on a dime. He has to accelerate up to that speed, and he has to slow down. Otherwise, the G-force would really damage him. And he can't turn it on in combat. It's specifically a traversal ability. You could then make the argument that, okay, his traversal speed is higher than his base movement speed because he has a specific speed boost ability, right? He has like a warp speed mode, right? Obviously, maybe to use a Star Wars analogy, I'm sure you'll be able to correct me on this because my Star Wars lore isn't that great, but if you consider the effective speed of a craft like the Millennium Falcon as it's engaged in hyperspeed, it's obviously way faster than its maneuvering speed in combat, like in a dogfight. However, it's not like Han Solo can just pull out that speed and apply it to dogfighting, right? They're kind of two separate categories of speed. But I'm guessing you're more chafing up against the way that people use it disingenuinely in debates and stuff like that. I'd be curious to hear more. Fod says the size of Naruto Earth has been debated for many years. A single Google will give you calcs dating back to 2016. Yeah, I think Sage mentioned this in his video too, that like some people have put it at the same size as our planet, like 2 times the size, and even getting it up to like 1.5 times the size of Jupiter. All of that stuff is like sort of okay. That getting it larger than Jupiter, you have to start suspending some. Basically, you have to be willing to say like, okay, this planet just does not obey the laws of physics, or at least not in the same way that our planet does. Because once a planet gets to that size, like things change. And next time, I'm going to show it. I have a simulator. I'm going to show how planets change as they get to that size. I have a little simulated solar system and everything, and I'll have to kind of demonstrate what happens if you try to get a planet much bigger than Jupiter. Basically, it kind of stops being a planet. To give a little spoiler, I'm sure Saria can precog me there, but yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. I've been kind of practicing with the simulator and trying to learn how to use it better. So let's see. Luan Jack says it seems that for speed calculating with Naruto databooks, the databooks reference itself a lot and not the series. Yeah, so here's the thing about the databooks as well, is like I think it's sort of rude to the creator to assume that they are true, and I know that sounds weird. Like, isn't it ruder, like more adversarial to assume that they're false? Like, why would you accuse the creator of lying? Well, it's not like that. It's not like we're accusing them of lying. It's like when you are an author and you want to create a story, you get to create a story with whatever tone you want to use, and you can choose to use a like dictionary accurate sort of encyclopedic tone, or you can choose to use a playful and hyperbolic and non-literal tone. And I think the databooks are, at least the jutsu entries and the character entries, maybe not so much like the character's height and weight and favorite food and stuff, but the jutsu entries are, to me anyway, very clearly written with a hyperbolic, playful tone. And to me, it's actually disrespectful to the author to not even entertain that and be like, no, these must be taken literally. Because then you're not actually asking genuinely, you know, I'm not trying to strawman here. I'm just saying that, like, in a certain perspective, if you're not even asking, like, okay, could the author be being playful and hyperbolic? You're not willing to at least explore that. Then you're saying, I don't care what the author wanted to say. And I'm just going to accept whatever version of it benefits me. And that's kind of shitty. And I understand that that's useful for debating. And I'm not saying everybody who has taken a databook statement literally is doing this kind of like straw manning. But it happens, you know. I've heard people literally do this and then turn around and say, and if the author of the series came up to me and said I'm wrong, I would call the author a slur and tell them that they were stupid and that they were wrong. So I guess it just comes down to what your goal is. If you're trying to find little nuggets of information or like facts or quotes or whatever to mine, so that then you can use that in an adversarial way to win, big fucking air quotes, win a debate against somebody, then yeah, that's fine. Just assume they're all true. But if you're trying to understand the series and trying to understand the creator, you should go through each statement with care and see if it actually fits. Some of them are fine to take at face value. Some of them are really simple and straightforward. But other times, like, the author just wanted to create some hype. Like the one for Kirin, it says something along the lines of, you know, the mythical beast descends from the sky. In a flash, the enemy is vanquished. There is no hope for escape. Something like that, right? And it's like, no, nobody got fucking vanquished. Itachi blocked it. He wasn't hurt by it. And it wasn't, you know, I forget what else I said. It's not literally a mythical beast. It's taking on the form of a mythical beast. But so what? Like, the author wanted to hype it up and to describe it to us in a kind of a cool-ass way and make it sound really extreme. So what the fuck is the problem? Like, we don't have to take that in the most literal way possible, put the square peg in the round hole, and just use it as a, like, cudgel in a debate. We can just have fun with it, you know? But, obviously, that's not going to win me a debate, so what do I know? Anyway. Darth Megal says, John, the story about the data books really reminds me of stories I've heard about people deconstructing from high control religion. Ah, interesting. Yeah, well, that's another thing too. I wonder, I think for anything that has a highly personal value and that's deeply entrenched for a long time, it's just difficult to question, because you're not just questioning your own preconceived beliefs in the thing, you're also implicitly questioning everybody else that you thought had credibility in believing in that in the first place. and that it can change your relationship with the community. I mean, I don't need to preach to you about this, right? Like, you've talked extensively in your videos about how that sort of thing can like ripple out, right? If you start questioning one thing, then all of a sudden it's like, you know, the shame and the stigmatization of being made a pariah, or my god, the thing you were describing about people doing the silent treatment. I forget the exact word for that, but that is actually like fucking sick. Like, not in the cool way. Just refusing to speak to somebody who's been made into a pariah like that like drives people insane. That's so diabolical. It's really, really fucked up. I'm glad that you're talking about it and bringing more awareness to it. Darth Magog says one Jack's attack potency goes over my head all the time. Oh yeah, so just as a very brief overview, the idea here when we're talking about power scaling is that the what's the way to put it? So at the end of the day, obviously there's more that goes into a fight between two characters than just the amount of energy that they output. However, when you are trying to create like a standard, like a scale, like some kind of brackets that you can put the characters in, and then say, okay, well, this character is only island level, this character is galaxy level, so they're not even in the same tier. What's the point of even talking about it, right? If you're trying to create those brackets, then the simplest, easiest, most direct way to do that is based on energy output. And both DC, destructive capacity, destructive capability, and attack potency, AP, are both measures of energy output. They're basically the same thing. The only difference is that for DC, usually people will calculate DC based off of like a big ass radius of an explosion or something like that, or material that's destroyed. So if you think of like I don't know, I was just looking at Deidara's like C0 explosion, right? You look at the radius of that. However, it's possible for a character to be able to like let's say Deidara used C0 on Madara, and Madara took no damage from it, right? He stood in the center of the explosion and he took no damage from it. But then Sasuke came along and he just like punched Madara through his chest, or like Guy came along and kicked Madara through his chest and caved in his chest cavity. Well, the amount of energy, the DC energy that came out of Deidara's C0 was resisted by Madara. So Madara has, if that was island level, let's say Madara has island level durability. Now, if Guy comes along and kicks him in the chest, then that means that Guy was able to overcome the island level durability that Madara has, which means that Guy has island level energy output, right? Because at the end of the day, it's Madara's like armor that's absorbing a certain amount of energy. It absorbed Deidara's energy, but it didn't absorb Guy's energy. It's always energy. But we would call Guy's attack an AP based attack, attack potential or attack potency based attack, because if he kicks the air, it's not necessarily going to create the same kind of explosion that Deidara did, right? Because that's just not how it works. It doesn't have the same level of like nuclear bomb payload type shit that Deidara does, right? It's just all of the energy is being focused and channeled into the tip of his foot or whatever, and being delivered straight through into Madara in a much more direct way. Now, obviously, if you know more about physics, you could break down that and say, oh, that doesn't make any sense, that there's problems with that. Of course. It's still a lot of summarization, a lot of shorthand for the sake of like simplifying the debate. But basically, DC and AP are both energy. DC is big explosive energy, and AP is just that same energy but focused into an attack that is much more like direct in terms of how the energy is transferred. Hopefully that makes some sense. Acts of Grace is control versus power. Yeah, I think that's a good way of summarizing it. Yeah. Unless you're talking about something else, sorry. But either way. Well, let's see. I'm way behind on chat. Sorry if I missed anything, guys. Should just be okay. Attack potency. Okay, Darth Magog says probably because it's not real. It should just be destructive force, but the way people like to shorthand things, it kind of became its own thing. Yeah, I mean it's like two sides of the same coin, really. And I think it's basically just using, like. The goal of it is excuse me. The goal of it, as far as I can tell, is to try and make sure that characters like Guy still can still participate in fights, even if they don't have those big explosive attacks, as long as they can overcome an armor or a defense of equivalent power. So it's just a way of leveling the playing field. Dark Magog says correct about the traveling combat speed, but the way that combat speed outstrips travel speed, which is something that almost exclusively happens in anime fandoms. Okay, yeah, I think we're on the same page. I think I know where you're coming from. Fod says a lot of these calcs are speculative and highly dependent on pixel scaling, making their reliability dubious. Yeah, I'm also of the belief that like pixel scaling isn't to be taken at face value. Like it's not 100% true necessarily just because it's on panel, because it's always possible that things are drawn inconsistently. I mean, Dr. Strangle sent over a really interesting image of different types of, like, different calcs for the Earth's curvature all being superimposed on the Naruto planet and kind of demonstrating how inconsistent they were. And so, yeah, I think it's a tool. It's one tool in the arsenal that you have for understanding the series. And obviously, the authors would have taken some time to try to draw things consistently, but I mean, it's not always going to be the case. I mean, like, go through any number of fights that are in the forest and count the trees in every single panel, and like look at the lines and ridges and stuff on the trees, and see if they're actually consistent. Like, see if the authors actually took the time to do that. Sometimes they are. They're not necessarily the it's not necessarily the case that they won't be, but a lot of time that shit gets like shorthanded as well. So use it as a tool, but combine it with the other tools that you have. The one Jack says, I've been looking into it for a while now, and it's weird. Used to think that shit was simple to understand, but looking further, seems to become convoluted. Yeah, that'll happen for sure. That's deconstruction in a nutshell. Yeah. Saria says it's a mythical beast in my heart. It will always be a mythical beast in my heart as well, Saria. Dr. Strangle says the fiction debate community is very religious-minded. I do think that there is a little bit of a like religiosity almost to the attachment to certain things like the data books. Yeah, I think that's fair to say. Jack says it's lightning dragon. How did Sasuke come up with that jutsu? Things that really keep me up at night. Yeah, again, like, this could just be one of those things where it's fun and cool, and it's a nice creature from mythology, and so Sasuke came up with it because it was a cool fucking thing that he liked, you know. Darth Magog says, Dark Triangle very much so. We call it disfellowshipping. Disfellowshipping, yeah. That is honestly terrifying. Like, I don't know if this is too personal or whatever, but there was, like, a time when I was a kid when I did something that pissed my mom off or whatever. And I think she read in a parenting book or something that that's what you should do. You know, it's like one of those outdated pieces of parenting advice. And so she just, like, stopped talking to me. And I was little at the time, and I was so fucking freaked out by it. I can't imagine what would happen if it was like an entire community, like people who loved you, who just like started pretending you were not there. Like, that's incredibly awful. The one Jack says, John, I hear you on that front, but I looked further, and let's say we have a guy and a data up on with the same total energy. What really digs my head is that guy's punch would be so much stronger. Yeah, well, because like Datara's yeah, so I guess this is where it starts to get tricky, right? And this is sort of the limits of my knowledge as well. Datara's explosion, if I understand it correctly, there is a certain amount of force from the epicenter of the explosion that's being generated and then distributed over a large area. And so Guy's kick is going to, if you take a foot-sized cross section and like out of any part of the explosion, the amount of energy that's going to be being transferred at any given chunk of that big explosive radius is going to be only a tiny fraction of the energy in the entire thing itself, right? So if you're on the outskirts of that explosion, like, unless you're in the dead center of it, you're not going to be receiving the full payload of the explosive of the explosion. When B gets the Bijou bomb flicked back at him and it's like right in Gyuki's chest, then in that case, I mean, like, obviously part of it is expanding outward away from him, but like at least half of it, if not more, since he's like wrapped around it, is basically like going off right at point blank, right on top of him. So all that energy is getting delivered directly to him. But yeah, if you just like are on the outskirts of the explosion, then you're not getting the full brunt. And so Guy's kick has like all of that same amount of energy directly on the, like, localized to that one point, if that makes sense, if my understanding is correct. Fod says we can begin by looking at the Mount Myoboku statement. It is said to take a month to get to Mount Myoboku. Yeah, exactly, that's a good point. That's why I had written over here, like, you can kind of see that I wrote Myoboku on one Myoboku question mark. What's his name? Fukasaku says that it takes a month to get there on foot, and then you have to go through the maze to get to the actual location. itself on the mountain. And so yeah, it's a long ass journey. I have no idea if it's supposed to be over here. I've heard that like the animal kingdoms and whatever are on this like side of the continent. But if it's in somewhere in the land of fire, then yeah, it's like okay, that's a whole other story. I'm not sure. Let's see. Do you have any specific questions about that though? Dr. Strangle says DC is not AP. When people conflate them, that's how you get ridiculous numbers for characters who are canonically street level. Yeah, let me know what you think about that. I genuinely, I've tried to look into this, and genuinely, this is what I think places like Versus Battles Wiki are saying, right? Like, let me know if I got it wrong, but I last time I read it, I came away with the impression that at the end of the day, DC and AP are just like energy output, and it's just the real problem is figuring out how that energy gets output essentially. But maybe I'm off the mark. I don't know. The one says because the bomb's energy is being spread across. Oh yeah, exactly. A wide radius, meaning it's losing energy. I lose my head when I have to keep that in mind. Yeah, it's so I guess there's kind of like two levels of power scaling and explosion. One is you can just say, okay, this character can output island level bombs, therefore they're island level. Therefore, as long as we can demonstrate that the other character has sub island level durability, then the first character would win. And then there's a second, and I think honestly, like a lot of people would be willing to just agree to that for the sake of a debate. You don't have to get deeper than that. But if you really want to go deeper and like get more detailed, then you enter like the second level, which is you have to say, okay, but for that feat, what was actually used to calculate it and how much of the explosion were they in and blah blah blah. So yeah, neither approach is wrong. I think it's sort of like house rules. When you're having a debate, when you're getting into it, when you're deciding how deep you want to go with your scaling, you just have to decide like what approach you want to take. That's totally fine either way. Let's see. Saria says, Lon Jax, I just want to see the first guy to use Toad Sage mode and see the Toads go, oh fuck, we should warn people, this shit is dangerous. Like imagine training a kid who turns to stone randomly. Well, they didn't seem to be all that concerned about all the people turning to frogs. They had like that whole collection of stone frogs that they were just like keeping in a corner, letting gather dust. So maybe they think it's kind of funny. Kind of like the idea of them being like trolls. Luan Jack says, LOL, Saria, and those statues are so massive, so that kid probably turned into a giant ass frog and got Medusa. Yeah, exactly. Luan keeps precogging me. It's cool. Darth Magog says Luan Jack's physical properties matter a lot too. It takes less force to take an arm off with a sword than it does with a cinder block. Yes, okay, so this was actually one of the things that like was so frustrating listening to Noodles, is that in a couple of his streams he was like very like adamantly against arguments to the effect that like piercing damage from a knife is different from like smashing damage from a hammer, like bludgeoning damage, and setting aside like the Dungeons and Dragons like style considerations for that kind of analysis. You can puncture skin with a little needle and draw blood, and you could like tap that skin with a hammer with much more overall force being delivered to the other person and like not even bruise them. So yeah, it makes a huge fucking difference. And there's just some people in the community who are like, no, it's all just attack damage. Like, no, motherfucker. Like, even in Naruto itself, there's plenty of examples of characters using different tools for different purposes under different situations. You think, there's a reason why they don't all like wander into battles with hammers. Hammers are tools that do a specific thing. It's so fucking like the argument was specifically about Yugito's paw swipe, right, on Kakasu, that whether or not it would be more impressive for him to have blocked the like soft pad of her paw versus blocking the claw, So I don't know. You tell me which would hurt more to get like raked across the face with, raked with a K, just to be clear, across the face with a dog's like the pad of a tiger's paw, or the claw of that same tiger's paw. Which would you rather get hit by if you had to choose? I'll leave it up to the court to decide. Physics is important. It's useful. Darth Mako says I definitely lean closer to real world physics because the other stuff reminds me too much of the high control religion. Yeah, that's fair. If I can't demonstrate it mathematically, I won't claim it. It's nice that you're actually being like open minded and showing some that wow English is hard sometimes. Showing some humility. Got me all tongue-tied. Okay, well, let's see. About the hour and 30 mark. Really loving the discussion. Please keep it coming. Keep the questions coming. Let me know if you have any other thoughts or concerns or anything. With that being said, I think I'm going to transition into discussing today's topic. So I'll put a timestamp here in the video for people who want to jump ahead. And I will just do like a little explanation of where we're at. So just give me a couple seconds for that. Dr. Tangle says, versus Battles Wiki and character stats and profiles, just say DC equals AP, and that's how you get massive inconsistencies. Oh, yeah. Well, okay. So clearly I have a potential misunderstanding. I'd love for you to elaborate either here or in the Discord if you like. Or if you have like it's probably, I'm guessing you probably have something on your page, right? I'll have to check that out later. But thank you for letting me know. I don't want to be like propagating misinformation. Okay. So, thank you so much for stopping by the stream. If you are here for the second part of this series, thank you for coming back. The premise of this little series here is to explore the geography and the size of the Naruto planet. And specifically, we're going to be taking a look at a bunch of different scenes from across different arcs in Naruto and trying to get a sense of how long does it take for characters to traverse the world. What kind of terrain is present in the areas that they're traveling through? What considerations do they make, and like how do they travel? Like, do they camp out? Do they stay in hotels? Do they dash the entire time? And all of this is somewhat in response to a video by Sage of Thick Calves where he was trying to calc the size of the Naruto planet using horse travel as a metric. The idea being that, like, supposedly a horse could travel at a gallop of 30 miles an hour for 12 hours a day, and if it takes characters 3 days to go directly from the land of fire to the land of wind, then it would mean that the size of the Naruto planet is about 172,000, or sorry, not the size of the planet, but like something like the distance between Redaku and the Leaf Village is something around the ballpark of 172,000 miles, yes. So, while something that we should be aware of as power scalers, or just as like analyzers of a fictional verse, or just in general, is that sometimes we might come across a piece of evidence that feels very compelling and is internally consistent, and hey, maybe the math checks out and everything works, but it's important not to just take that at face value, but to put it in context. So let's take this as an example, right? Let's say the distance between Redaku, which is, by the way, the location of like Sasuke Retsuden and Kakashi Retsuden, let's say the distance is indeed like 170,000 miles. Okay, well, from here to here on this map is 170,000 miles. So now we're going to talk about the Land of Waves, right? Naruto and Tazuna and Kakashi and Sasuke and Sakura managed to get from the Land of Fire to the Land of Waves on foot, walking at a slow pace. So if this is 176,000 miles, or 72, then this is about halfway through, right? So what would that be? Something like 80,000 miles? So if this is 80,000 miles, this looks about the same. So that's also 80,000 miles. So that means that Tazuna and his escort walked 80,000 miles over the course of, what is it? We're going to look at it and see if we can figure out how long it is. It might be a day, might be a week. It's probably not a month, right? Because of everything going on with Zabuza and Gato and all that. So, what? Does that make sense? Does that actually make sense that they walked 80,000 miles in a few days with like a drunk-ass old man civilian? I don't think so. So, but that's just two pieces of conflicting data, right? So I have this piece of data. Sage has this piece of data. Where do we go from there? What other pieces of data can we gather about the experience of traveling between different places in the Naruto universe? So we're going to look at a bunch of skins. We're going to take our time and just kind of go at a leisurely pace. We're going to start with the Land of Waves and just talk about a few different things. And then going from there, we're going to talk about some of the different travel feats from within Shippuden. Yeah, I think that pretty much covers it. Get started in just a second. Let me just catch up on chat. Dr. Strangle says, I treat DC as joules and AP as... Oh, okay. I hadn't even been considering the different types of like energy output measurements. That's a very good point. Oh, sorry. Pod says the estimation of the planet comes out to be far larger than Earth, even when one uses horse speed values to estimate the distance, coming out to 8 times the size of Earth. However, realistically, the distance is far, far greater than that, as shinobi have vastly greater travel speed feats than merely horses. Sure, I think I just saw Darth's comment there. So yeah, I think it's possible that the diameter of the Naruto planet or the size of the Naruto planet could be significantly larger than our own. Let me just restate this as I mentioned last time, but I want to be very clear that no fictional author is ever under any obligation to accurately represent like physics in their world. If they do choose to do that, that's great. That can be useful for their story, but there can be plenty of opportunities where like not I mean, like in a lot of cases, it just doesn't make sense to do that. You'd actually be hurting your universe. Like if you're making a magical fantasy realm, maybe you want to make a planet that is actually like cube shaped and hollow in the middle, right? With a black hole just a mile outside, like away from the planet or something like that. Because it would be cool. It would tell a fun story. You don't have to follow all the rules of physics in our real world. You don't need to know how to do any math or physics to be an author. So Kishimoto is under no obligation to make the Earth conform to our earthly physics. However, we as power scalers, and the way that we interpret the series, we do tend to assume a lot of things are the same in terms of physics in the Naruto universe. Whether it's something as simple as like friction or gravity being the same, or characters breathing air, or whatever else, like wind resistance. And if you go through the series, you can find examples of Kishimoto like trying to I think making some of those same assumptions as well. Doesn't mean he knows everything, that he's perfect about every representation. So if we're going to have this conversation in the first place, I think it's interesting to think about, you know, what would actually be the case if the Naruto planet were, say, 10 times larger than our own. Now, I don't know if the gravity, like surface gravity, scales linearly, but would that mean that gravity is 10 times stronger? And if so, well, that would mean that the characters themselves are way stronger than normal humans at a baseline. And then, like, things like throwing kunai around, like, okay, well, any calculations that we do for projectiles need to account for 10 times more gravity, unless it just doesn't apply, and then, like, gravity is just magically normal even though the planet is bigger. But that's interesting too. Like, how do we reconcile those things, right? So either way, we might wind up coming to the conclusion that the planet is genuinely like hundreds of times bigger than ours, even if it doesn't make any sense. But I think we should be careful about how we come to those conclusions, because, you know, if we just like take one little measurement out of context, it's probably not going to give us an accurate summary of everything. We should look at things like a wide variety of different things and kind of combine them together to get like an average, so to speak. I think that gets us closer to just understanding it in general. Hopefully that seems fair. If you have any other questions, feel free to check out the stream from last time. I tried to put some timestamps to where some of the information is. Hopefully that's helpful. Feel free to ask me any questions either here or in the Discord or in the comments or whatever. We kind of went over a lot of stuff, so I'm happy to like repeat or to like clarify if I can. Yeah, Darth Mayhook, 170,000 miles. Yep. Actually, in Sage's video, he suggested that the Earth could potentially be calced at multiple astronomical units, which, if you're not familiar, is the distance between the Earth and the Sun. And suffice to say that in my simulator, when I ran that, no, it doesn't work. So I'm really excited to show that off next week. Let's see. Jupiter has 0.5 times that of all the other planets in the solar system combined, has a gravity of only 2.5 Gs to R1. Yeah, that makes sense. But that's also, isn't that partially because the composition of Jupiter is different? Would a rocky planet that gets up to the size of Jupiter not have, like, if we assume that the same density and stuff like that, would be more massive as well, right? Or am I mistaken? Either way, like, when the, yeah, I'm tempted to bust out the simulator now, but I don't want to get too off topic. So, yeah. Let's see. Fod says there's a statement from Kinshiki regarding the space curvature of the Earth. Yeah, so what he says, if I remember correctly, is that, like, the curvature exceeds 16, and anything over 10 is something we need to report back to the Otsutsuki clan. I don't know what that means, though. I'm guessing that something about the way that Kaguya and like all the chakra that had been accumulated and developed or whatnot at that time, um, was just causing some sort of space-time disturbance. But I don't know. I don't know for sure. You are correct about that statement. I don't remember. Like, I don't have enough physics knowledge to explain what that means exactly, though. Maybe somebody else knows. Darth Magog, yes, the Naruto Earth. That was his claim. Oh, it's mass. Okay, gotcha. Yeah. Well, I really hope you're on next week. No pressure, of course, but if you are, I'll be curious to see your reaction to the simulator. Fod says, given that the space curvature of planets come from their mass, this implies that Naruto's Earth is far above the standard, is extreme enough to warrant being reported to the main Otsutsuki clan. Yeah, but isn't... Well, I think that's a good point. I guess I'm just wondering, like... The way that I have to go back and look at the scene in the anime, but the way I interpreted that scene is that, like, they weren't expecting that planet specifically to have a reading. Like, they were already aware that Kaguya went there, right? And they were kind of just expecting her to deal with her shit and then report back. But then they were like, Kaguya hasn't harvested this planet yet, and then also the curvature exceeds 16. So... or is like 16, which exceeds 10, and we're supposed to report past 10. So the way I interpreted that was that, like, the planet itself doesn't have a curvature that's that big, but because of the development of chakra, the development of civilizations, that was somehow causing the space-time disturbance, possibly even like Kaguya's actions themselves causing some sort of a ripple or a tear or something like that. Because we seem to see some sort of like tears or cracks as well that Toneri's fighting against. I'm not sure where those are exactly, but I'm not sure. It could be. It just seems a little weird to me that it would be talking specifically about the radius of the planet or whatnot. Because I feel like they would have, like, that the planet's size would have always been that's the same even before like human life would have like flourished and developed and be ready for harvesting, right? Although we don't know how far back the Otsutsuki go now. Dr. Strangle says Jupiter's 1,000 is the math of the sun, and the sun has a gravity of 27.9 Gs. Okay, so not the same, not the same at all. Okay, I was way overestimating it. That's cool. I have heard though that at like, just at a few more Gs than ours, it gets like hard for our heart to pump blood, and there's things that start happening to us physiologically that just make it difficult for us to exist at all. So even if we have like the muscular strength to live in that environment, there are other parts of our anatomy that would probably be compromised. Just like the physics, says Darth Magog, of how a Naruto Earth would work, immediately upskills Kid Sakura to nuclear freaking warhead levels at base. Yeah, well, see, this is my thing. My issue is never with like, okay, the Naruto universe cannot be X, Y, or Z size. It's like with well, I found one thing and this thing makes sense to me, so we're done. No more questions. Thank you. Goodbye. Thank you. I'm done. It's like that sort of attitude, right? So the same thing that, like, not to rag on Sage all fucking day, but talking to Sage about the interior of the moon. The interior of the moon in Naruto is hollow. There is a scene where Naruto breaks through the crust of the moon from the inside. There are oceans, or like lakes at least, and forests and civilizations inside the moon. So I wanted to know like how much how hollowed out it was and how much mass was quote unquote removed by that hollowing out. And his response was basically like, well, it's called the moon, and they wouldn't call it the moon if it wasn't the moon, so it's safe to, in Japanese, so it's safe to assume that it's the same, because why would they call it something different if it was different? And also, it can't be that hollowed out because Kaguya is in there, and they wouldn't want to let her break free. So it's like, okay, like, you just don't want to talk about this. That's okay. You know, you're not under any obligation to, but it's like the lack of curiosity to explore it, and this like, well, it's probably this, so it's this. It's like, okay, I find that frustrating. Anyway, let's see. Gravity scales quadratically, not linearly. Okay, that makes sense, yeah. So I really appreciate you, I really appreciate you guys chiming in and talking about this stuff, because my knowledge is limited on the math and physics, so having the perspective is really helpful. Fad says, I do firmly believe that this is clearly an indication that Naruto's Earth is being larger is continuously supported to be a thing, even in Boruto. Yeah, that's cool. I appreciate the disagreement. Feel free to let me know if you have any more pieces of evidence you want to go over, I'm totally down to hear it. My current finding is that I don't have a specific numerical value, right? I think it's probably about the same size. It's probably a bit larger, but I don't necessarily have a problem with it being quite a bit larger either. I am not going to agree that it's the larger in diameter than the distance between us and the sun. Like, you're not you're not gonna hear me agree with that shit. But yeah. Oh, are you talking about the thing where Kakashi is talking to Nanara about like the pop-up book with with the map in it, and like they're pointing at the map and saying like Nanara like can't believe how big the earth is? Yeah. So I interpreted that scene to be like this little kid who's lived in a sheltered, like kind of cut off way his entire life, just doesn't, like, he can't conceive of how big the world is. But I can definitely see where you're coming from there. It does kind of feel like the author is telling us like, hey, this world is incomprehensibly huge. Right? It's like overwhelming. So yeah, there's actually a lot of useful information in Kakashi Retsuden. It's a fun novel. It's not a super long read. I would encourage anybody to check it out who's interested. Okay, so let's get started and let's talk about some of the Land of Waves stuff. So I just want to provide a little bit of context for what is happening here. And I might actually choose to... Yeah, I'm sorry, some of this is a little bit out of order. Yep. So let's actually just jump right back into the manga real quick. And let's just look at what Tazuna says when he first shows up, and then we'll go back to the mirror board. I love this. I love the little intro panels or whatnot. Okay. Oh, I was actually on the right chapter. So, let's gather some context and then look at the overall scene that's being generated for us here. Okay, so here's Tazuna. He shows up and he's like got a bottle of presumably liquor in his hands. He's an old dude. He's a little heavy set. He's got a big pack on his back with this bedroll over here, right? So he's somebody who has come seeking protection, right? A bridge builder of renown. So he's been able to get to Konoha himself on foot in whatever his condition is. He's not a shinobi. But anyway, he was able to do that, right? So now the squad is going out on a road trip. Notice that Naruto does have this big ass pack on his back. Now, that's not necessarily all like travel supplies or anything. There's probably like weaponry in there as well. But every character here has their own pack, and they are getting ready for this road trip, right? And so understanding that they're under a certain amount of time pressure because they need to get to the Land of Waves in order to yeah, he's still day drinking. Get to the Land of Waves in order to finish the construction before Gato arrives, right? So they're setting out on the road, and oh yeah, here's this useful diagram that Kakashi provides. I'm going to skip over this for now. But as they're walking along, here comes the attack from the Demon Brothers, and basically just want to kind of go through this quickly to give a sense of how far they're able to go in what seems to be like a day. So obviously this is all still happening on that first day. They beat them up, and Kakashi does this analysis. This is really clever. I wish more of this sort of thing were happening in the series later on. So now we get a little bit of exposition from Tazuna. Okay, so this is something that makes it a little difficult because things are sort of told out of order. This seems to maybe be like okay. So, wherever these characters are right now, what happened is that the Demon Brothers failed to kill Kakashi. That word somehow got back to Zabuza, and then Gato, went up to Zabuza and let him know. So I don't know how that information got back. Maybe it was a bird observer or something, or maybe like they went to check. I'm not sure, but that's one potential thing to kind of consider for that. Yeah, Dr. Strangle, I just saw that. Yeah. I was kicking myself when I was listening back to that. I guess I was in an anti-Sakura mood at the time. But yeah, like the limiting factor of their travel speed there is specifically Tazuna, not Sakura. Like they could probably get there a lot faster if they were actually like able to move faster than a walking pace. But I mean, like, look at his footwear too. It's like these big open-toed sandals. Like, he's not fucking running anywhere with that shit on his back, right? What? This is an awesome panel as well. Okay, so this looks like it's somewhere in the Land of Waves. It looks like this is the bridge, maybe the start of the bridge. Love the construction of this building. This is so fucking cool, and its location here in the forest. Just a beautiful. I'm gonna try to call out instances of just like really entertaining or like compelling world building as well. So let's see. Let me catch up on chat real quick. Gothmego says the light novel should decide to either be good action novels or learn how to do math. Why are those two things so often at odds with one another? Darth Magog says, of course, I really don't like the Naruto novellas. You don't? Interesting. I think we talked about this before, but is there anything in particular you don't like? I think you were saying you didn't like how they constantly shifted perspective and tone. Is that right? Fad says they sound a lot like fan fiction. Sometimes they do, yeah. The Kakashi and the Sasuke Retsuden still felt relatively grounded, although, you know, dinosaurs kind of strains belief, I suppose. Sorry says, I feel like I'm being very silent. Oh, no, not at all. You're good. But I got a big bowl of Brussels sprouts and hot sauce, so I'm just kind of chowing. Yes, good. This is good. I'm glad. Feel free to chime in if you like, but also you can just listen. There's no problem with that. Darth Magog says, I mean, technically they are assuming the authors are fans of the series. Yeah. They just happen to be official material too. Yes, it's official headcanon. Dr. Strangle said, oh yeah, we got to that. Endurance running in sandals is possible and practiced by many, including world-class marathoners and indigenous groups like the Tarahumara. I wasn't aware of that. That's a good point. I still think that, like, it's hard for me to picture Tazuna himself pulling that off in this particular footwear, but yeah, that was probably kind of silly of me when you think about some of the world's like best like foot-based athletes, like best long distance runners and stuff are probably not wearing Nikes or whatever, right? So wasn't there a story about, was it Usain Bolt who they like had a Nike sponsorship and he had to wear the shoes, but he like couldn't get used to them. They were just like slowing him down and uncomfortable, so he wore the shoes like on his belt or like tied to his pants or something like that because he was contractually obligated to race with them, but he, you know, it wasn't actually helping him, some shit like that. Let's see. Okay, so here we get some little, this is such a cool panel as well, look at that. Okay, so it's kind of hard to tell how much time has passed, but let's look out for a couple of things, right? We see that it's still daylight out. We see that none of the characters seem to be like scuffed up or dirty or anything like that, despite just having had a fight recently. And now they are in the Land of Waves. They've traveled via a boat or something like that. Now we're going back in time a little bit to see some exposition regarding Gato and everything that is putting the amount of like time pressure on the Land of Waves. Here we see a little bit of so this is where some confusion comes from, because it looks like this is a bridge that's leading to Konoha, and people kind of dispute or to the Land of Fire rather. People kind of dispute the location of the Land of Waves. The creator of this map has put it somewhere down here because it's described as being part of the south, right? But also some other person has suggested that it could actually be here, and it was like retconned to be over here, or that the south thing was like an error or something, because the bridge, it kind of looks more like this, that the bridge is kind of going off like this and connecting to the mainland. Like if it was over here, it would probably have to be like over here actually, so that the bridge going off to the east or to the west, I'm sorry, would connect with the mainland like that, which would be a little weird, but I mean, it's hard to tell. Either way, so Tazuna and the crew are either traveling from here to here or from here to here and then traveling by boat, however far you think that is. So just keep that in mind. Let's see. This would absolutely be the case. One second. Oh, yeah, okay, sorry, I got cut up. Fod says 2 locations separated by 3 days of horse travel are effectively in the same location on a continent map. I'm not sure about that. Could you elaborate on that? This absolutely would not be the case for our Earth, as horses can travel thousands of kilometers. No, I don't think they can, and the latter would absolutely be visible and significant, even relative to our entire planet. So, feel free to dispute this. Like, you can feel free to do research as you like, but or like research it further and then let me know what you find. But when I did some research on this, my finding was that the sort of peak equestrian civilizations in our history, including like the Mongols, for example, were able to maybe get to like 100 miles a day. And that was specifically with having multiple horses that they rotated through and taking time to let them graze and developing equipment that was extremely streamlined and highly specialized and basically like devoting their lives to doing so. So the world record, I believe, for a horse traveling in a day in modern times is 100 miles in a day. And similarly with equestrian societies, and we're talking about like open steppes, like wide open plains and such. It's really like ideal conditions that are already known by the riders. Then they can travel maybe 100 miles a day. That's what my research found. But let me know what you find. Also, the individual horses can't. They can quote unquote go at 30 or 40 miles an hour, but they can't sustain a gallop for more than maybe a minute. If you do that, then you're going to really fatigue and damage and maybe even kill the horse if you like try to push it to go at a breakneck pace. I mean, like, I'm wondering now if that's where the term breakneck comes from. Anyway, Darth Magog says it's mostly that the light novels don't have a professional prose. They read like comic book outlines. There's not a lot of connected material, and they don't stand well on their own. Oh yeah, that's fair. I suppose they can be a little bit haphazard. I didn't really mind it as much in Kakashi Retsuden, but I haven't read a ton of the other ones just as of yet. So, just Janko said, "Can I prove the old man isn't the Usain Bolt of long distance running?" Hey, I don't know. Maybe that brew that he's got there has like a Hyoragan, like a military ration pellet in it, and just makes him fucking tear off like Sonic the Hedgehog. Maybe he outpaces the rest of them. Who knows? It could be. Dr. Strangle says horses can travel thousands of kilometers in days. The best horses, yeah, only able to go about 100 miles. That's what I found. The horses would have to be sprinting 24 hours a day to make it 1,000 miles, and there's no galaxy where they can do that. Yeah. So, Fod, again, like, this is just my, like, quick Googling. This could absolutely be wrong. But what I was able to find out about, for example, geese, right? Like, migratory geese flying in formation can get, under ideal conditions, they can travel like 1,500 miles a day, 1,500 miles a day. So, there are definitely animals that can make incredibly long journeys over the course of a relatively short period of time. But I think the thing about that, though, right, is that they can kind of coast and glide along for a long way, and they fly in formation, so they kind of trade out position in the flock, so to speak. Unfortunately, are not going to benefit from that sort of thing. If they had like a system set up where like every 100 miles they had a horse that they could swap out, then that would be one thing, right? Like if I'm a shinobi and I'm riding on a horse, I ride the horse for like 8 hours as fast as it can go without like dying or getting injured or something like that, and then at the 8-hour mark there's a checkpoint and I jump onto another horse immediately. Like, I'll be tired, but obviously I'll have a fresh horse and I'll be able to keep on going decently from that point, right? So there's ways around that. But yeah, so here's overall the backstory on all of this and kind of establishing the pressure for it. And then, of course, here's the bridge itself that they're currently working on. It's not all the way done yet. There's the village, and then they kind of go through this evergreen, or they go through the mangroves over here, and now they're inside the Land of Waves, which is really, really cool. So, why do I want to bring all this up? Well, there's a couple of things that I think are worth considering. First of all, it's impossible to know exactly how many days it takes them to get there, but now we're kind of going back and watching them along the route, and they do manage to. One potential interpretation is that it takes them a day, and I don't know if I fully agree with that, but given that it's like still light out, right, they can get there in a couple hours because they're just walking along the way. Another better interpretation that I prefer is that it takes them a few days to a week. because they're obviously traveling to a different land, right? They are crossing into the borders of another distinct place, and it's somewhere that's like far enough that Tazuna can't just like get on a horse or like I don't know, just like walk down the path without an escort. He needs somebody to actually protect him along the way, but it's also something that like a person in his condition can like feasibly do, and feasibly do under a certain amount of time pressure, right? So understanding that there is a time limit on how long it's going to take, or like, yeah, how long it's going to take Gato to show up and start harassing them, feels to me like somewhere between, I don't know, 3 days and a week is how long it takes them to get there. So maybe you think that those figures are completely ridiculous. They are made up, right? I'm basically just like trying to do my best guess estimate, and you can absolutely dispute that. But I think that gives us a bit of a ballpark, and we can test those values out in our head. So here's Konoha, and pick whatever coast you think is more reasonable. I'll pick this one since that's what the map shows. This means that, like, okay, which do we think is more reasonable? That the characters were able to get from here to here in 1 day, here to here in 2 days, here to here in 3 days, 7 days, whatever. What feels most reasonable? Now, obviously, we don't exactly know how far this is, right? But we can assume a couple of things. We can assume that, like, they would be traveling on roads that wouldn't be, like, going through all kinds of crazy, thick forests where they'd have to hop around on trees, because Tazuna probably wouldn't be able to do that like shinobi do. And that probably Kakashi knows the way, and so it's like a relatively simple route. You know, they're going at a presumably a walking pace or something like that. And whether or not you think it's 1 day or 7 days or a month, wherever you think it's reasonable, it's probably not a fucking year, right? We don't see the seasons change or anything like that. They don't have enough supplies for that. We never see them stop at any way along the way to camp or to stay in a hotel or anything like that, right? So, I don't know, let's say a week. Does that seem reasonable? Does that seem fair? Okay. So they managed to get from here to there in a week at walking pace. Again, like I said before, if they can walk 100 miles a day, which they probably can't, but even if they walked 100 miles a day, that means that we have about a 700-mile distance between the Land of Waves and Land of Fire. Obviously, we have to factor in the travel in the boat. That doesn't seem to take more than a day in and of itself, and it's on that little motorboat, not like a big cruise ship or something like that, obviously. So how does that fit with our overall schematic from before? Now, if this distance over here, like we talked about last time, is 176,000 miles in total, then does it really make sense for this to be 7,000 miles? Well, this feels like way bigger, right? Assuming that the scale is even across the map, this feels like it's way, way, way too big for that. But I think we put this something at like 3,000 miles, something like that, right? Because we said that there was a hawk last time, and the hawk can fly from Redaku to Konoha in 2 days. That we use the value of geese flying, migrating, and we highball it at 3,000 miles. So if this is 3,000 miles from here to here as the crow flies, as the hawk flies, then this here to here being 700 miles feels like it's closer, right? Now, obviously, neither of those things are precise measurements whatsoever. They are guesstimates at best. But the calibration of the map immediately already starts to feel a little bit tidier and a little bit more reasonable. Here to here is what a hawk can do in 2 days. Here to here is what Old Man on Foot accompanied by a little troop of shinobi can do in maybe 7 days. That seems like it's sort of constricting the size of the world overall in a reasonable way, even if we don't get precise numbers. Now, just a few things that I thought were interesting to note. First of all, I included this from chapter 23 just to kind of point out that I will be referencing scans that I think could make a good example of, we could look at it, the curvature of the Earth, but something to keep in mind is that we have to be careful about that because Kishimoto really likes doing cinematic effects like fisheye lenses and stuff like that. So obviously, like, the Earth looks like it's curved here, but so does the bridge. This looks to me, at least, like, especially since the curve extends over here, like this is like a fisheye camera sort of thing. So something to be aware of just when looking through the series is to be aware of the cinematic techniques that Kishimoto likes to use. However, there's some other useful information we can get as well. I've been thinking about like how far away is the bridge, like how long is the bridge, because that's part of the travel journey, travel distance as well, right? You have to think about the purpose of this bridge being constructed here is to increase commerce and trade between the land of waves and the land of fire. It's supposed to allow for goods and transportation between those two things to happen. So if that's the case, it needs to be reasonable in size and distance in order for that to be made feasible, if that makes sense. So let's just keep that in mind. Now, here are some of the characters, and you can actually see that the land is on the other side. You can clearly make that out. If you're wondering about like how far away they are on the bridge from the other side, well, in this panel, Gato's men were able to kind of come from around the other side and cut them off towards the edge of the bridge. This is the side, I believe this is the side facing towards Konoha. So this is the end of the bridge over there. And if we look back over here, I think they're on the other side of the bridge. Maybe it's vice versa. But the point is that you can see one side of the bridge from, you can see the other part of the land from the other side of the bridge. Like they are at the very end of the bridge and they should be able to see the other side. Let's see if I can find that perspective. Maybe not. Here. So hopefully that makes some kind of sense. My goal here is to try to show that, like, since the land is visible on the other side, that it can't be more than a few miles, maybe 10 miles or something like that. Here's an example of the longest bridge over water in the world. This goes on for 23.79 miles. Now, I don't know anything about like bridge physics or anything like that, but you can kind of see that even though there is a land mass in the distance, obviously it's going to it, it's so far away that you can't see it. So I think it's reasonable to say that at the very least, the Land of Waves bridge is less than 20 miles long, especially since you can see it right there. So that's another thing that we can do, right? So if the Land of Waves is actually here, then we could also say like, okay, well, this is probably not more than 20 miles long. And if that's the case, then, okay, if this is 20, then what is this, like 100, 1,000? What about this? If this is 20, this like 1,000. Again, maybe this map isn't perfectly drawn to scale, so we could look at it on this other map over here, right? We could take a look at this. Looks like it's about potentially a different scale. So going from here all the way to the Land of Waves, that's a distance that they can make in maybe a week, right? And then over here, this is what, like 20 miles? Okay, so again, if the scale here is anything remotely representative, if this is 20 miles, this might be 1,000, maybe less. Start to accumulate all the little breadcrumbs, all the little pieces of information, and even if they're not like ironclad, which they're definitely not, there's plenty of shit that we can dispute. Everything I just said, it starts to paint a picture. There's one more thing I want to talk about, but let me check chat real quick first. Like, I can't do that yet. Fod says, my bad if I didn't make myself clear, but in days I didn't mean it like in 1 or 2 days. Oh, you meant like in a week. Oh yeah, that definitely changes things. So sorry if I misinterpreted what you were saying. Darth Magog says maybe a week at the fastest, realistically 2 weeks, minimum 11 days. That seems like a reasonable figure. Dr. Strangle says in Lord of the Rings, they do the horse switch thing until Gandalf is given Shadowfax, the lord of all horses who ran 6 days straight and was said to be faster than the wind. Yeah, I love seeing how like other fictional universes handle this sort of thing, especially ones in which there are absolutely not like trains and blimps and stuff. I think Saria was saying that, is it Sanderson? Am I remembering the name correctly? Had some interesting stuff about how horses were managed. I'm sorry, I don't know who Geese Howard is, but now I'm imagining like Howard from fucking Better Call Saul, but with a goose head. So thank you for encouraging that image in my head. Appreciate that. Fod says, like, for example, in the entire 3,200 kilometer route from St. Joseph to Missouri to Sacramento, California, was typically completed in about 10 days. Is that right? 10 days on a horse from those 2 locations? That's really interesting. Can you do me a favor, please? Can you send me a Discord message with that info? I would like to learn more about it. I was trying to learn more about like how long it takes wagon trains to travel across the country and all that. But yeah, I would definitely be curious to learn more about that. Darth Magog says 256 miles a day must have made that a world record. Yeah, it could very well be. Hey, Francis Bolina, thank you so much for stopping by. I hope you're doing well. It's good to see you. We are just chatting about some Naruto geography stuff. Let me know if you have any questions or any comments. Fod says, what I especially want to highlight from the point and the intent of the conversation, the entire conversation is about Kakashi doing exactly what I'm doing right now, explaining how big the planet is to Nanara. Yeah, I remember that scene. That was a really cool scene, actually. Within that excerpt, he talks about how big the world is twice, using the fact that a 3-day horse ride is minuscule compared to the size of the world, to tell Nanara that the planet is very large. What this means is that the author's intent is fully backing an extremely large planet for Naruto. Yeah, so I definitely get where you're coming from. I think Sage of Thick Calves would probably agree with your interpretation based on the video we responded to last week. What I will say is something to keep in mind about like Redaku, where Nanara is that I don't have all the scans here, but I'll just put this up for some eye candy. Is that Nanara is in Nagare, right? He's in the little village that's a little bit more like well-to-do, that's away from the capital, and he says, and the old lady at the beginning of the novel both say that it takes 3 days to travel from Nagare to the capital. And Kakashi and Nanara, which you probably already know this, but like Kakashi and Nanara travel that way, and it takes them 3 days, but they're going at like a walking, plodding pace, and they stop somewhere and like rest at one point. I think they sleep somewhere overnight. So when they say it takes 3 days to travel there, they mean that like it is a 3 days journey going really slow, like on a horse, through mountain passes and taking time to rest. Right? It's the same thing where like the not vice principal, what the whatever the fuck this guy's name is, the prime minister, Jesus Christ, getting tired. The prime minister is like, it'll take us 6 months to get a wagon train convoy or whatever to have everybody migrate down to Konoha. So he said something along the lines of this, like, which is why I drew this black line here. Part of the story of the Kakashi Retsuden is that he wants to invade the Land of Fire using the whatchamacallit, like the dinosaur Edo Tenseis or whatever. I know they're not really Edo Tensei, but yeah. Coming from Redaku to the capital, and he says, like, normally speaking, if we had like a regular civilian caravan, it will take 6 months, like half a year, to go from Redaku all the way down to here. And when you think about like, okay, I believe it took something like it's like 2,000 miles across the United States, and wagon trains during like pioneer times would take something like 4 to 6 months to make that journey as well. Then yeah, that kind of makes sense, right? That this would be something like 1,500 miles, 2,000 miles. You put that together with like the crow flying from here to here, or the raven flying from like here to here in 2 days, like just flying nonstop. That would be, again, 2,000 miles. 3,000 is a high ball, but we could settle on 3,000 miles and still have these other things be consistent. So hopefully it makes some sense. I think that my interpretation there is that the author was trying to underscore just how isolated Nagare was, and how completely naive, Nanara was. Because remember, like, Nanara doesn't even really know if shinobi are real. Like, he believes in the legend of the Six Hokage, and he kind of like idolizes him, but he's almost like a myth. And he doesn't have any direct access to a lot of that knowledge. So from my perspective, I think it's kind of he thinks that like a 3 days journey on a slow ass horse is like a challenge. There's even a line somewhere in the book where he says like he should have been exhausted from being on his horse all day, but he was still restless or something like that, if I remember correctly. So from this little kid's perspective, yeah, the distance from like between these two towns is a lot for him, let alone the distance between like his continent and another continent. But I don't think it's enough to say to like go from there to then say that the planet itself overall is necessarily much bigger than ours. It could be, but I think it's more kind of emphasizing just how clueless Nanara is about the overall like scope of the world, if that makes sense. But it's open for interpretation. Kazekage says, honestly, I don't think that Kishimoto sensei has any idea how big regular Earth is. Well, I mean, when you spend 25 years of your life like working overtime to the point where, like, didn't he put his like honeymoon on hold for 20 goddamn years because he was crunching the entire time to put this manga out? I imagine that he probably doesn't have much time to travel, or didn't. Hopefully he can live his fucking life now. Vice principal, I knew schools couldn't be trusted. Yes, schools teach you bad horse math. School system has failed us yet again. Okay, so again, like, my intention here is not to be like, oh, here is a a precise measurement between these locations, because honestly I don't think that's even possible. I don't know how I would even give you a precise like numerical kilometer distance between any of these places. But what I can say is that I hope this will encourage you to go out and continue doing more research on your own and just kind of looking through the available information in context, and then you can take that and start to construct your own map of the world. The only thing I really want to discourage is like over reliance on one single solitary piece of evidence, as opposed to trying to put together a body of evidence and see how it checks out. There is one other thing that I want to bring up with regards to the Land of Waves, which is just this. So this is in chapter 451. You may remember after the pain fight that Konoha is obviously demolished, and what happens immediately after that is that Tazuna and Inari. Tazuna and Inari receive a summons from Konoha and show up and start to help repair the city. So again, it's not really possible to know for sure how long this took. However, is this Mabui or Atsui and Samui? They show up, and I never remember these guys' names. They show up as well, and when they show up, the village is still in a lot of disrepair. Now, what's his fucking name? Tenzo, Yamato has started to use wood style to help reconstruct the village, but he seems to have just gotten started at this point. So again, it's impossible to know for sure, but it looks like this is only a couple of days after the pain assault, because they still haven't like started to muster and get ready for the 5 Kage summit. These guys have just gotten there to deliver the message in the first place, and they were sent out like right after the pain assault, I think, or even like a little before it, because they were responding to B getting captured, which happened before that, right? So, and then here come Tazuna and Inari, and not only do they show up themselves, but apparently they bring like a shitload of building materials with them, and they bring like other construction workers. Like these guys in the back came with them and are part of the construction crew. So now you have to say, okay, even if we're not sure about the 1 week figure from before, we think it's 1 day or 1 week, now you have to figure that like, now we have a group of artisans and Inari and his dad, who's even older now, who are coming across a bridge with a shitload of like wooden planks and all kinds of building materials and supplies. These are not ninja. These are not people who are dashing directly for the land of fire. They are walking slowly and deliberately along main roads, not taking shortcuts or secret routes or anything like that. And they're just going straight to Konoha in order to help repair it, right? So whether you think it's coming from here or here, here or here, again, I don't think it took them a week to do that. If you think it did, that's fine. How far can a convoy of construction workers and supplies make it in a week? How far are they going? Again, I don't think that they can make 100 miles an hour with that. Like, I don't think they're doing that. They don't have cars, right? So I don't think that they're able to do it that fast. I say they don't have cars. I will mention, for the sake of being thorough, that we do see this construction vehicle, which is weird, because I think Kishimoto specifically said in interviews that like he didn't want to put any like cars or vehicles or anything like that in the Naruto universe. And later on we even see characters being carried around on like palanquins and stuff like that, like the nobles and shit like that, right? So that's the question that I have. These characters over here, maybe they were able to bring like this vehicle with them, or they have like trucks like this that they can drive over. So how far do you think a truck like this, or like a backhoe, a crane or something like that could travel in a day? How many days do you think it would take a convoy of these things carrying all this lumber, all these building materials and supplies in order to get there? This is an open-ended question, right? To anybody who's watching, or even just to the community in general. How far do you think they traveled? And can we reconcile the distance that they traveled with all that shit exposed to the elements with this being 176,000 miles? To me, it doesn't make any sense. To me, it's ridiculous to say that this is that far, but this amount of distance is something that they could cover with all those supplies, in a few days at most. So that's just how I Tobacco chakra powered. Yeah, sure. They just, well, if you were here last stream, you would know that, and we're entering the sarcasm zone for a second, you would know that since there are lightning trains in Boruto, there could be no other possible explanation for a train being called a lightning train other than that it moves at the speed of lightning, right? So, so clearly, all they would need to do would be to put a lightning jutsu in the back of this fucking thing, and it could get there in a split second. Or no, because it's lightning powered, and it takes them a full, like, multiple days or a full week to do that, then this thing that's traveling at like 220,000 miles an hour or whatever, maybe faster, yeah, that just makes the planet, like, you know, hundreds of times bigger than ours. Not in my opinion. Darth Mako says, we call power scaling art major physics at work because, well, rule of cool trumps all. Honestly, that's a great way of putting it. Have you heard, are you familiar with Patton Oswalt? Have you heard his bit on physics for poets? I kind of feel like him in certain instances when going through this. Let's see, Dr. Sango says, the Joseph, Missouri to Sacramento, California is known as the Pony Express. They use between 400 and 500 horses to complete the journey across the 1,966-mile route in approximately 10 days. Damn, okay. The Pony Express used between 400 and 500 horses to complete the... Oh, okay. That's fascinating. Okay, I'm going to have to look into that some more because... So, when they say they use that many horses, do you mean that they had, like... They had it set up in, like, a... lightning style backhoe, god damn it. So they had it like set up in a convoy, and like travelers would kind of like hop from pony to pony or whatnot. They would just kind of like rotate them through. That's fascinating. So that means that they were going like 200 miles a day, right? If my math is right there. But presumably no one horse was going fucking 200 miles a day, right? It's more of like an innovation. Lightning style lumberjack, I love it. I mean, that's the thing. I've been watching Legend of Korra, and I love how many different ways in the later seasons they've found to make like bending a normal part of everyday life. Like obviously manipulating the trains or stuff like that is one thing, or elevators or opening doors or whatnot. But there was a scene where Korra's like playing with her dog, polar bear dog Naga, and she's just like doing whack-a-mole by like making little bits of earth pop out of the ground and having her chase them. It's like, that's really sweet. I like to see how this stuff gets integrated into normal life as well. Yeah, no worries for the recommendation. I saw Patton Oswalt live a couple of years ago, and man, he's great. He's really, really great. He's also one of those people who I think was a little resistant to, you know, the introduction of like new terms for gender and stuff like that, but he had a really wholesome way of kind of coming around to it, and he has a bit called like listen to their heart, which I think is really really kind of sweet and on point. The backhoe turns into something, and I yell out backhoe backhand taijutsu. Yeah. I admit, like, there's something about the phrase backhoe that is like always going to be a little bit funny to me. Okay, so hopefully that just kind of helps establish some skill. Again, the goal is not to provide a specific numerical measurement, it's just to provide a scale. And with that being said, since I already mentioned it a little bit, let me see if I can find the shit about the nobles approaching the, let's see. Yeah. A few other things that we can talk about tonight. Let's see. Map. So at the, sorry for the incongruity between the color and non-colored scans. I'm going to be using colored scans going forward. I've totally come around on them, and I prefer them at this point. But, I mean, the early, like, black and white stuff is still really beautiful. But, yeah. So, I wanted to just go back to the Chuunin exams for a second and talk about the way that characters are traveling from other lands to the Land of Fire. So, again, I could not find out. It might be actually not possible to know for sure, but I was not able to find out anyway exactly when the messages were sent out from Konoha indicating that the Chuunin exams were going to start. To me, it doesn't really fit, at least to me subjectively, that it would be more than like 2 or 3 months. because depending on the way that I mean, I don't know, they could be kind of preparing in advance for it, but I'm pretty sure that fuck, I didn't queue it up. There's a scan where Kakashi's like walking along, and then he sees like this little bird stop by, and he's like, "Oh, I can't believe it! It's already time." Oh yeah, here we go. So like, this little bird flies by, and that indicates to Asuma that it's the time for the Chuunin exams. Same thing happens over here for Kakashi. So I think it's like once everything's ready to go, they send out the messages, and they probably notify other villages, like Daimyo as well, about when they're planning on having the actual like final tournament. And that gives the other villages about a month to get their shit together and to start a convoy and to get their like dumbass daimyo and lords over into the stands for the celebration. Now, for some context on that, right? Here is the first time I think that we see one of the lords represented. If you're not familiar, the actual quote unquote actual rulers of the Land of Fire and all the other lands are like daimyo. It's kind of like similar to like shinobi and I think daimyo was the right term, right? The land rulers in Japanese history. Anyway, here we have the daimyo. He's obviously kind of described as a buffoon. He's depicted that way as well. And now let's talk about how they're presented when they show up. So here is the daimyo's convoy as it appears, right? There's probably some shinobi guards here. Looks like they have headbands. Yeah, it looks like they all are. But they're carrying the palanquins with them, right? So they are kind of pampered. They're kind of pompous or whatnot and allowed in. If you're not sure about whether or not these are actually the lords, there's a couple of things over here. Here's the quote-unquote third Kazekage. It says a majority of the shinobi rulers and lords here, including myself, came here almost solely to observe the match. They're talking about the one with Sasuke, of course. And here they are all in the stands, which it's fucking guy over here. Hey, stop looking at me like that. They're all it's this guy too. They're all kind of like upset. They're not okay. None of these guys are okay. But here they are anyway, in their fancy outfits, like sitting in the stands, waiting to be, entertained, essentially, right? And again, over here, like lords and nobles. So there are people who are coming here from other countries specifically to witness the entertainment of this event, and they are not warriors. They're not like dashing over the hills and going through secret tunnels and all that. Maybe some secret routes or something to keep them safe, but they're not dashing around like shinobi do, not like this, okay? So again, let's just picture in our heads, try to figure out what that means for the overall design of the world. You have to figure that we don't know exactly where the daimyo live, but even if we assume like the nearest location, right, so that this would maximize the amount of time, the amount of distance that they're covering, or like it would result in like our calculations, meaning that the land is as big as possible. Would be the case if we assume that like the capital cities are around here. So we would say, assuming that they found out immediately and started off like a month before the tournament, which it's sort of hard for me to imagine those pampered, like prissy little lords spending multiple months on the road just to see a show. But maybe, let's just assume, right? So it takes a month for them to get from here to here. It takes a month for them to get from here to here, etc. Like, pick the other villages. Where's this? A month to get from here to here. Obviously, that would be a little bit harder. A month from somewhere within the Land of Fire. Maybe it doesn't take as long because they leave later because they're closer. And if anybody comes from the Land of Lightning as well, then that would take that length of time as well. Now, that's assuming that they're coming from all of these different places. You could obviously go through the manga and double check that. Maybe there's no evidence that they came from the Land of Water. That's fine, right? Maybe it's just Land of Fire. But still, think about how, like, the practical realities of traveling, like, carried around in a palanquin really slowly in order to get to, and under surveillance and all that, because you don't want people ambushing you, in order to get to the Land of Fire. Those fucking lords are not, running day and night. Those fucking lords are not refusing to eat or just like pumping themselves full of soldier pills and whatever to survive. They're traveling like normal civilians would travel, probably staying overnight in places, probably, stopping to eat and to rest and to go to the bathroom and whatever else. So, God damn it, I have to stop doing that. I'm sorry. So just again, you don't have to have a specific answer for this, but just consider for yourself what feels reasonable for that kind of thing. Does it really feel reasonable for, if this is 176,000 miles and the distance from here to here is like 50? Do you really think that like a old like a old non-combatant, non-shinobi noble is going to travel 50,000 miles in a month, watch a show, and then travel 50,000 miles back? How about 25,000? Is that more reasonable? How about 8,000? How about 100? Which one of those figures feels more reasonable? You can use that data and plug it in and put it into context with the other data that we're going to accumulate and decide for yourself like whether or not this calc is reasonable, right? Or whatever other calc you're evaluating. Let me catch up on chat real quick. Darth Magog says, LMAO, Boruto would have been so much better if they stuck with the mysticism versus technology theme from the first Chuunin exams. The show has so much potential. Yeah, I actually really liked that, honestly. It's something that Korra addressed as well, or like explored as well. The idea that, okay, you have a society that is heavily based in tradition and mysticism and this connection with spirituality, and all of a sudden, this new technology has appeared on the scene that is causing a push away from that and causing like an evening out or equalization of potential. You no longer need to like train and put your life on the line and go through all this rigorous stuff in order to have access to these extremely cool and powerful jutsu. Now everybody can participate, and as long as you have enough money, I guess. And honestly, it kind of echoes some of what happened in human history, right? If you think about the democratization of death is, I guess, a pretentious way to put it, but now, at least in my country, unfortunately, like anybody can just kind of like go and put some ink on paper and then just have a gun and just have the ability to kill people if they want to at a distance, with very little training or effort involved whatsoever. Compare that to like training to be a knight or something like that. It's a completely different situation. And so yeah, I obviously, like, I'm not disputing the value of like personal, like firearms for personal defense or something like that. Like, I'm not trying to get into that, but I'm saying that it's bizarre to be able to just like walk into a Walmart and like be like, oh, here's a Dr. Pepper. Oh, like here's an old like DVD of Katy Perry concert. Here's a fucking shotgun and all the ammo that I need for it, and I could just walk out with all of that shit, all that destructive potential. And with very little effort, so and the changes that means for like personal autonomy, personal safety, but as well as like for like the spirituality, for the access, like the privilege of access to specific types of abilities, and how that can change so dramatically and upend everything. It's really interesting. I wish they had explored that more. Honestly, one of the more interesting characters to me was Ao, the guy who with the like minigun arm or whatever, who used to be a water shinobi. That was that whole character arc that he had of abandoning his shinobi self and basically becoming a walking prosthetic was really cool. And his conflict with like torn between those two things was really cool. So yes. Soldier coke, yeah, they're just like kind of crunching on crystal meth on the way between the different paths. Honestly, I mean, like those soldier pills are basically that, right? Dr. Strangle says the Pony Express Trail used 80 riders in between 400. Oh yeah, I think I said that. From the settled Midwest to the new state of California. I'm gonna see if I can find a documentary on that. That sounds good. Yeah, the democratization of death, the democratization of freedom. Yes, yeah. Well, as long as we can all get like if we're going to purchase our firearms, as long as we can get a Katy Perry DVD and Dr. Pepper at the same time, then I get no problems with it. Oh, Mr. Narrative, sorry I missed that message. Mr. Narrative says, "Ayo, bro, what would happen if instead Naruto appearing to fight Pain, Goku appears?" I mean, well, it really depends on what stage Goku, like what part of the series, but just use Frieza Saga Goku. I mean, like Pain is done. Like I'm a Pain glazer all day long, but like I mean, if fucking like Six Tails Naruto could put his tails on the ground and like anchor himself in place to resist the Shinra Tensei, and like Goku could go up against Frieza, who was capable of like blowing up a planet with one I mean, not instantaneously, but still with like one energy ball. I don't know. I don't see what pain could possibly do to Goku. As much as I love pain, uh, well, fuck, I don't want to get into this whole debate, but like, I'll say this. If Pain could make contact with Goku to rip out his soul, I think that would be effective. If Pain could make contact with Goku to drain his chakra with the Predapath, I think that would be effective. I think if Pain could manage to create a diversion with the dog, and Goku didn't figure out in time that he needed to, like, he didn't like understand chakra and didn't understand like summoning jutsu or whatever. He was just like, this is just a dog, right? And started fighting with it. That would give Pain the opportunity to kind of creep up on him. If it was just him versus the Deva Path, and they clash like Kamehameha versus the Shinra Tensei, like the Shinra Tensei is getting tunneled through and Pain's getting annihilated. But if stats get equalized a little bit more to make it a little bit more fair, then yeah. Oh, you're right. Sorry, I forgot. Yeah. Pain uses gravity wave based attacks, which are the speed of light, and Goku hasn't learned instant transmission, so basically he would just die. Pain would just like gravity wave his heart and rip it out of his chest, even though he's never done that in canon, because he's my beautiful shining god and he can do no wrong. I hope you will accept. I will accept your concession now. Thank you very much. Okay, so yeah, that's just an attempt to provide a little bit more context. Let's take a look at I think I want to skip over some of this stuff here. Obviously, so Naruto and So one of the things that kind of came up in the Sage video is the idea that like horses, the horse math was relying on a horse running directly to the from Redaku to Konoha. Like that was the kind of scaling that was being used, right? So as we go through this, I just want to point out what the terrain of Konoha, or like the Land of Fire, is. So this is just like right outside of Konoha, on the battlements or whatever you want to call them. And already we can see that what looks to be like lakes, if they're not lakes, then they are just, I know it's kind of hard to tell based on the shading and everything. But they're either bodies of water or these are patches of grass, and these are thick trees and these are mountains. So it's already like not even terrain. I mean, the name Konoha Gakure, right, as I'm sure everybody knows, means the village hidden within the leaves. So it's something that's not in a totally wide open land, and it's a little confusing because the first fan book does have something, some line about how the Land of Fire is just filled with gentle rolling waves and open plains and all that stuff. And yeah, I'm sure there's some of that out there for sure. We do see, but the actual like Konoha environs are quite thick and dense with forest and other like topographical things like that. I'm blanking on the words, right? So that's one thing to consider, is that the terrain, not just in Konoha, but around the various different countries, is going to vary quite a bit and may be rather treacherous to actually try to get through. Furthermore, we have these characters going and pursuing Gaara at this point, right? Now, I don't know exactly how to do this, what the best way to do this is, but I want you guys to think about motion blur as a storytelling method and about conversation while traveling. Now, I will say that there's a scene with, actually, let me pull this up because I'm going to wind up talking about it sooner or later. At the beginning of the Chuunin exams, there's one scene that I think is actually something that is really, really important to keep in mind when talking about the way that speed and scale are portrayed in Naruto. And it's this thing here with Lee in chapter 37. So Lee starts fighting Sasuke, and Sasuke is trying to see through his movements with the Sharingan, but of course, Lee is not using any kind of illusion or anything like that. So I'm going to contradict myself here, and I want you guys to have the evidence to use against me, so to speak, to understand that there is a counter argument for what I'm saying, okay? But look at what happens here. So Sasuke gets kicked up into the air. As far as we know, gravity is still a thing in this universe, and it's still working here, and so it's still falling. He's still falling down. Like he's being accelerated upwards right now, but at the same time, there's acceleration from gravity slowing him down and pulling him down to the ground. In that time frame, let's look at what happens. Lee says all this shit out loud. Then he does this. Then he appears behind Sasuke, and then he has the time to say all that. Well, that's fine. You know, he could probably say all that before Sasuke really fully starts to fall down. But then this happens. Then he says this, and then he says this, and then he says this and 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 this, and they're still in midair, and they're still talking, and they're still in midair, and they're still talking, right? And they don't ever fall down to the ground. You can still see he's hovering in midair. They've been having a full-on conversation here. So as far as I can tell, there's two ways to interpret this scene. One is that they're having some sort of like conversation between each other, like Sasuke and Naruto have when they fist bump. It's basically a moment frozen in time, or rather, not frozen in time. It's basically like an instant sort of mental exchange between these two warriors. We're not supposed to come to the conclusion that they are literally hovering in midair having this conversation. Neither of them are time benders. They're not like slowing down time or exceeding the speed of light or whatever to have this fucking conversation. They just made physical contact, and since they're making physical contact and they're shinobi, they can share thoughts back and forth. So this is a mental representation of the conversation between the two of them. Whether they're literally having it or this is just the thoughts that they're sharing in their mind doesn't really matter. The point is that it's non-literal. The other explanation is that they're like literally hovering in midair this entire fucking time, which makes no fucking sense at all. So I just want to point that out. And now that I've pointed that out, I want to go back here and ask us to ignore all that, because now I want to make my point, which is that these characters are having a conversation with one another while they are going through the forest. And if we're trying to say how fast are these characters actually going and trying to get a gauge on how far they're going, I think we can look at stuff like motion blur. So the amount of motion blur that we're going to be seeing, obviously it varies in consistency across the series. Like, you should look at a bunch of different things from across the series as a general example, right? But it's worth looking at and saying, okay, if they are going this fast, or if the trees are this blurry, how fast are they going? Get in your car, preferably with somebody else driving, and try to slowly increase up to the speed limit on the highway, and wait until things start to get really blurry. Better yet, get on a train. Right? It's much safer and easier to focus. Get on a train and look out the window as the train accelerates. How much blur do you wind up seeing when the train starts to accelerate? And when does it start to look like this? Can we get an idea of how fast they're going based on this? Also, think about things like wind resistance. How much noise is being generated as they're dashing around at high speeds with the wind in their faces? How fast can they be going to continue maintaining a conversation with each other under these conditions? If not these characters specifically, but there will be other situations in the series where characters are moving similar to this, and people will say these characters are the speed of light. Okay, well, does it make sense for them to be moving the speed of light and for us to see the motion blur and all the dashing effects, and also for them to be having conversations? Now, to be honest, the answer could be shut up. like the answer could be, John, you just proved over here that it doesn't matter, because you can use whatever kind of cinematic timing or conceit that you want to try to build the scene. So Kishimoto just wanted them to talk while moving. Don't overthink it. And yeah, that is actually a totally fine interpretation. It's one interpretation. And if you prefer that interpretation, you're allowed to have that. There you go. It's genuinely okay. But for me, when I look at this, these are the things that kind of come into my head. I see these dashes off of the surface, and I assume that they're there to indicate the amount of strength that the characters are using to leap off of the surface. And that, for me, puts a cap on the amount of strength that they were using to launch, which puts a cap on the acceleration that they are launching off the structures from. When these characters are able to maintain conversation, that means to me that they're probably not moving faster than the speed of sound, because that would make things really, really fucking weird if that were the case. When we can still make out the outlines and shapes of things with a certain amount of detail, like you can actually see the shading and the stuff and the individual like branches on the trees, it's not just a big blur, then they're probably not moving at like Mach 5 or something like that. And if that's all the case, and they're able to get to Sasuke's location within a couple of hours or something like that, okay, or even less time, again, it's hard to tell for sure, then that gives us, again, not a precise numerical value, but at least an overall general constraint for like the upper limits of how big the space is. Anyway. Mr. Narrative says, yo, that's a good topic for a video. Equal stats Goku versus 6 Paths of Pain. Honestly, it could be a lot of fun because I feel like Goku is overall the more proficient like fighter. He's a more solid warrior, but Pain has more like hacks and tricks and like just weird shit that he can do. And I think to really do it justice, we'd have to know like, can Goku resist like mind hacks and stuff like that, you know? Anyway, Darth Magog says stepping away to have a bit. BRB. Yeah, no worries. If you wind up coming back later, it would be great to have you back. If not, hope you have a great night. Thank you so much for the great conversation and hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend. But yeah, Mr. Narrative, that actually sounds like a fun topic. It might be like a fun collab or something because, you know, obviously I think I know quite a bit about Pain, but not about Goku. So, if somebody like yourself is more knowledgeable on the Goku front, we could have like a back and forth about that. That'd be cool. Saria says, I want to say this again because every time I think about gravity waves, it melts the brain of astrophysics student in me. Gravity waves are surface waves on liquids. So the fact that was said, yeah, man, I mean, like, add that to the fact as well that the databook entries for the, like, Shinra Tensei and all that use phrases like similar to the laws of gravitational attraction and repulsion or similar to, like, electromagnetic forces. It's not actually gravity to begin with in all likelihood. Well, I don't know, like the Chibaku Tensei core, I've called it gravity core before, but even then, like, it's clearly not working like normal gravity because it would just like come crashing down to the earth, right? There's something sustaining it and keeping it in midair. I think using these like real world things as a framework is great and giving us some clarity is great, but like, yeah, I have to actually, I mean, I don't know if you I probably shouldn't get too off topic, but like in the 5 minutes that I was capable of enduring, or however long it was in that Seth stream that I checked out, he started talking about Roche limits, and he just said there are things called Roche limits, you know, and then he had like a picture of the Earth and the Moon up on a page, and he just started drawing like ellipses between the two, like all over the place, being like, okay, yeah, there are things called Roche limits. Are you actually going to explain what they are? Do you even fucking know what they are or how they work? And, you know, it's one of those things where they're, like, really simple to grasp. I'm sure you know, I'm not preaching to you here, but, like, really simple to grasp overall, but really kind of complicated in terms of overall implementation. And people love to just throw shit out there like that to sound impressive, but not actually explain it or put it into context or try to, like, I don't know, see how it would actually work in a simulation or anything like that. Anyway, so yeah, gonna take a break from the actual, like, this is how fast and how far these characters are moving for a second, just to point out a couple of things that I noticed. First of all, not 100% sure about this, but I think that this might be the Forest of Death, because it's got the river running through it. It looks like it could be the same. Obviously, the fence around it is not identical. But if it is, that gives us an interesting potential metric for measuring this space, because we're told that the Forest of Death is 10 kilometers in diameter. So if this is 10 kilometers in diameter, we could bring this over here and plonk it down in the middle of Konoha, and we could get a radius for Konoha as well. Looking at that, it looks like it might be something like 50 kilometers in diameter. I mean, it's just an eyeball, obviously. But if we were to put it here at the center, this being 10 would probably occupy about this much space, and that's about, yeah, obviously I'd have to do the math, I'm just like bullshitting at the moment, but maybe 25 to 50 kilometers in diameter for Konoha itself, including all these villages. But of course you can dispute that by saying, I mean, if you zoom in here, like, look at the actual size of a building and then try and actually go and calculate how big that individual building would be and then extrapolate, or better yet, like the Hokage monument should be pretty easy to get like a size for. If we can do that and then extrapolate it out, I don't think that this is 50 kilometers. Like, that seems like a massive highball to me. But so maybe this might not be the Forest of Death, actually. And that's a good way of testing things too, right? Like, this seems logically like what it would look like, the placement of it would be, it could be, but then does that actually match up with what we know about this and all that? Force of Death stuff too, while we're at it, I had a couple of things to say about the Force of Death, namely, actually, is it further? Where is it? Okay, so yeah, let's just talk about the Force of Death real quick. So we have the start of the Chuunin exams, and then the river kind of comes out into two forks. Let's see, does it do that over here? That's kind of hard to... No, I don't think so. Just the one. Okay, so it's probably not the Force of Death. It could be, though. But anyway, so Uncle explains how the forest works with the thing in the center. So it's 10 kilometers. Oh, actually, it's 10 kilometers in radius then, because the gates are 10 kilometers from the tower. So my bad. They're actually the diameter is actually 20 kilometers across. Okay. So that being said, given that the radius is 10 kilometers, you could potentially look at some of these things for a distance measurement of how long it takes them to get there. Once Anko finds out about Orochimaru and she goes searching for him, it's just worth noting, I think, that she winds up kind of traveling through this dense forest like this, which has, enemies attacking her and stuff like that. And it takes her to dusk, and she's still searching through dusk to try to find him, even though it's like extremely urgent. So this area over here is, I forget how to do the surface area or the entire like volume of the space or whatever, but it's 10 kilometers from any of the entrances to the center. So even if she's going back and forth, remember that like if we get anywhere even remotely close to starting to say that these characters are the speed of light, this distance becomes completely fucking trivial, right? Because you can get around, if I remember correctly, you can get around the entire Earth's diameter in or circumference rather 7 times in 1 second at the speed of light. So even if like she was like half the speed of light, right, or even if she was just the speed of sound, the amount of ground that she should be able to cover, there's no reason that she should still be searching until night. I guess unless Orochimaru is like just hiding really well. I guess that's one potential thing. But I mean, like, look, here there's this thing about 10 hours earlier than that, around 10 p.m. on the first day of the forest, right? So she's searching from like for multiple days in the forest to try to find him. I mean, like, granted, she is like fighting things and stuff like that, but it's weird. This is one of those little things that I don't think I have a very strong argument or anything. Like, I'm not going to base any scaling off of this, but just keep in mind that here's an example of a Jonin who is in a critical situation, like a life or death situation, who's in a relatively small amount of space, and she's still not really able to cross it all that quickly. If you really think about the implications of her being the speed of light, not that she is specifically, but like a character of her tier being anywhere near that, right? Since Kakashi is supposed to be the speed of light in part 1 around this point. Like, if she's anywhere near his ability, then, I mean, like, what does that say about why she's taking so long? Open-ended question, genuinely. Anyway, so let's go on with the Chuunin exam stuff, that's report to death stuff. I think it's just a minor piece of information, but it's worth noting that, of course, Gaara was able to get across the area in 97 minutes and was totally unscathed, keeping in mind that Gaara was able to do so while stopping to kill somebody, so it wasn't just like a straight shot. But obviously it's mentioned that it's not expected for Genin to be able to do that, and I think... Yeah, so journeyman level ninja, I think, are Chuunin, right? So what this guy is saying that, like, it should be impossible for a Chuunin to be able to accomplish what he just did. And this is a new record as well, right? So just think about that, what that means. Gaara managed to set a new record by crossing this distance of 10 kilometers in, what'd she say, 97 minutes, something like that? Where the hell was it? 97 minutes, yeah. Okay. So think about the math and think about the implications of that particular feat. Like, that's how long it took him. He stopped at one point to fight, and he emerged unscathed, and then he got to the tower in under that amount of time. So let's say he was traveling unobstructed for an hour, and that means that he could go 10 kilometers in an hour, just in a straight shot. So that's that exceeds the travel speed of a journeyman level ninja, right, of a Chuunin. So that's getting him up to Jonin levels of traversal speed. So Now, obviously, it's not precise, but we're starting to get a sense of like if you are above Chuunin, you should be able to go about 10 kilometers an hour through difficult territory. And if you travel 10 hours a day, that's 100 kilometers. And obviously, if you're a Jonin, you could probably do faster than that. So, yeah, this is something that you could look at and be like, okay, we can extrapolate from here as to how even stronger, even more powerful, even more proficient ninja can make even more impressive. 1 second. Oh, sorry, something in my house. Even more impressive feats. However, I think it's also worth noting that there's some other potential things over here. Here's this group over here with Kiba and Shino. They're able to travel 50. How far did they get exactly? I'm losing my train of thought a little bit, but yeah, I think this is just more for context. Like, look at how fast they're traveling, dashing around. They're still not there yet, even though they've been traveling for 50 minutes and they already got one of the scrolls. These characters do stop to eat. Okay, so yeah, that was more just a little aside. Nothing precise there with this in terms of scaling, but maybe worth considering. So, you want to talk about this? Okay, so let's switch gears a little bit because, oh, sorry, it's a weird noise. Let's switch gears a little bit because there are some pretty clear indications we can get from the travel feats going towards the whatchamacallit, during the Kazekage rescue arc and going specifically to the Tenchi bridge. So these are things obviously that happen in Shippuden, so characters are upscaled a bit. They are faster, they are stronger, they have more durability and more endurance. And so I think this arc over here, the Kaze rescue and the Tenchi bridge beats, are genuinely useful for trying to get a sense of how far these characters can travel and the size and scope of the spaces that they're in. So let's start by looking at the Kazekage rescue arc and just see what we find as we go along. So to start off with, we just have a little bit of context here about what's going on from Kankuro and Temari. And then what we have here is, at this point, Gaara has been kidnapped and is now about to have his chakra drained. Or his biju drained, Jukaku. And we're told from Pain that it's going to take 3 full days. So from the start of this onward, everything else we see, there are 3 days that transpire. I don't remember precisely when these guys leave, but I think it's like right after this happens. There's a missive like that they sent for Konoha for more reinforcements, and so now this has started to be the case. Like Pakkun has been sent back to intercept them, right? So they are beginning to move towards Konoha. Let's notice a few things. First of all, let's notice that each of these characters, despite for context, we're also told, I forget where exactly, but we're told that the distance between Konoha and Sunagakure is 3 days specifically. There's like multiple statements. I should have compiled them here, but they're pretty easy to find, and it's something that is sort of generally agreed upon in the community. Like, it's pretty explicitly stated. So it's safe to assume, in my opinion, that the distance between Suna and Konoha is 3 days. Like, that's very clearly established. Okay, so with that being said, going back to the mural board, we have a couple of interesting things here. First of all is that all the characters here are carrying heavy backpacks, and sure, they could be chock full of weapons. I don't think Lee's is going to be full of weapons. I don't know if Guy's is either. I mean, he has his nunchucks for sure. Tenten's might be, but she actually uses her scroll to summon her weapons. So you have to wonder what is in those packs. Probably provisions, probably camping supplies, something like that. But let's just keep that in mind going forward. Now, that being said, let's also look at this comment from Tenten, right? They've been running not even all day, but they've been running, maybe a full day, maybe 24 hours has transpired, or maybe it's just nearing towards the end of the day. But the idea here is that Tenten expects that she'd be able to rest despite only having traveled 1 day. Now, obviously, Lee kind of makes fun of her. But the fact that this even comes up in the first place, and the fact that Tenten is described in the data books consistently as being like somebody who nags the team and like keeps them in line and reminds them to stay tactical and to stay like to focus basically. I think it's yeah, it could be weights actually. Sorry, yeah, that's a good point. Well, that's another thing too, that he and Guy could be like totally weighted down at the moment. That is a real consideration. But yeah, so you can take those databook statements skeptically, of course, that's totally fine. But this seems to indicate to me anyway, this is one small crumb that seems to indicate that rest is part of the normal thing that shinobi can do when they're traveling. Also, a nice little detail here is that, like, while the other characters are relatively... Well, I'm wondering if Tenten being squatted over like this is to indicate her fatigue as well. But I'm not sure. She seems fine over here, so not entirely sure. So, Pakun also kind of lets us know specifically that now that Gaara has been captured by the Akatsuki, that they have... that the fucking Akatsuki have taken him specifically to the Land of Rivers. So we don't know exactly where the Land of Rivers is, or where they've taken him in the Land of Rivers. But this is the Land of Rivers here. And if you figure that, like, okay, the whatchamacallit, they're going from the Land of Rivers with Gaara. Sorry, they're going from the Land of Wind with Gaara into the Land of Rivers. Then they have to be going somewhere in here, obviously by definition. So you could pick a spot. I picked here because it was near the hidden village, but it could be over here, it could be out in the mountains, could just be whatever nearest location they managed to find to the Land of Wind. I actually kind of prefer it to be somewhere up here because it feels like they would pick something a little hidden, a little further away from the village. So what this means is that people leaving from the Land of Wind, like Naruto, are going to try to intercept the Akatsuki. They're coming from this direction, and the people who are leaving from the Land of Fire, from Konoha, are also intercepting the Akatsuki, and they're coming from this direction, and they're going to be converging upon the same location, and they have to do so within 3 days. Saria says, oh wait, I was memeing, I'm glad that explanation works. Yeah, honestly, I guess it depends on how dire the situation is, but it feels like something that they would have Lee do. So they're able to continue, traveling along, even though Tenten complained about it. They're totally fine. And along the way here, oh, that's right. So along the way, they also meet up with Kisame's clone, and they fight him, and then they continue moving on from there. It's worth noting that at the beginning of the journey, they are in a heavily densely populated forest area with mountains, and after they beat up Kisame and or his clone and move on, the terrain is starting to change. Notice how now it's a little bit more rockier. There's still some trees, of course, but now there's a river. Now there's a little bit more of like a dirt-covered mountainside or whatever, like a dune or something. So Kishimoto is kind of signaling to us that, like, okay, they're now getting closer to the edge of the territory and moving on to a new biome. It's good to look out for signs like that. So moving back to Naruto for a second. Naruto is trying to capture Gaara. Trying to save Gaara. He thinks that Gaara is going to be killed, or potentially, or his life is definitely being threatened. It's extremely dire and extremely urgent that they get to Gaara as soon as possible. It's like a big deal. It's urgent as fuck, okay? And what is he doing? He's sleeping. What is Sakura doing? He's sleeping. Chiyo is there watching them. Because even though things are extremely dire, even though things are extremely difficult, and the life of a dear friend of his is on the line, they still need to sleep. They still need to pause. They still need to rest. Now Kakashi shows up and he says, enough break time, we have to get going. So, there's a difference though. Somebody of Kakashi's level is not necessarily going to be sleeping when they are. Perhaps he was sleeping off screen. Perhaps he took a shorter nap. Chiyo doesn't seem to have napped. It's possible that at their level they don't need to, but it is standard. It is a safe assumption, or at least not safe assumption. It's a reasonable consideration that shinobi, even in extremely dire situations, traveling very, very quickly because they have a lot of pressure, would still be taking time to camp and still be taking time to sleep. Yeah, notice that they didn't just like throw a tarp over themselves and then like fall asleep inside a bush. They built a campfire. Now, obviously, for shinobi who can like chop through things and set things on fire with jutsu, I'm sure this was very easy. But still, that might have indicated that they took time to eat as well. So these are still human beings. They're superhuman, and they can supplement their humanity or limitations with different techniques and jutsu and tools and all that shit. But still, they have limitations, and they stop to rest on occasion. That being said, going forward, they get to the boulder, and we have this message from Pain, says complete. So 3 days have now transpired. The Pain clock has now elapsed, and now 3 days have gone. Naruto comes out, he dashes forward, and he approaches the place. I only included this because Naruto is able to like vastly outpace them with this dash. So in other words, not vastly outpace them. What's the way to put it? He has had this ability in reserve. Obviously, like he hasn't been like having his chakra leak out or whatever, and going like full QB like rage mode. But despite the fact that he has been traveling like for 3 days with very little break, he still has this reserve power that he can draw on to go even faster. So it's worth considering that like if Naruto was on his own and he was unhindered, wasn't traveling in formation, that he could have potentially turned this mode on, and especially if he was like in KCM or something like that, that he could have gone much farther, much faster by not resting, which is to try to swing things back in the perspective of, I guess, somebody like Sage's point of view, to say that, you know, once you get up to the level of somebody like Kakashi, you have techniques and abilities to supplement your speed, obviously, and you can draw upon like large reserves of stamina to move faster and further. That's still obviously an option. I'm not trying to say that these characters are just like regular humans for the most part. They're not. Other couple of little interesting details over here. Okay, we see a river. I'm not sure that that's ever depicted on the map, but it is kind of nice to see some world building there. The terrain has changed significantly, so we know we're out of Konoha. But then here, when Gaara is recovered as well, they've moved a little bit away, because now we're sort of back into the forested area and this big open plains. And these are the big open plains that I think people are like usually associate the Land of Fire with. Although I think they're probably still in the Land of Rivers over there, which makes sense because there'd be like a big ass river flowing through it. So they're probably somewhere around here if I had to guess. Anything else over here? I don't think so. Just worth noting again that like now Naruto and Sakura are going back to just put it this way, right? Like this whole team is now going back to Konoha, and it takes 3 days for them to get there. And like, I mean, if they're able to take soldier pills, and that's like a standard thing that they do, and they're able to just get there without pausing or resting or sleeping or anything like that, just supplementing their abilities, and they use scrolls to summon in their weapons so they don't have to carry them on them, like all their weaponry on them at all times, then there's kind of no reason for them to be carrying all this shit on them. It's just weighing them down, right? It'd be much better, much more efficient if they just like committed to the 3-day sprint and took a soldier pill or something like that and traveled really light, like kept that shit off their back to make it easier for them to get there faster, and then just like did it all in one fell swoop. Unless, and also just like ate, I don't know, some like dried like hardtack or something like that, right? That way it would be much more efficient for them to get there. But they're not traveling in the most efficient way possible. They're all laden down with travel packs because they stop and they rest along the way, right? That's something that they do. I don't know if there's anything else over here. I just thought this was kind of funny that like, yeah, obviously under some circumstances they can go a whole lot faster. So the counter argument to what I'm saying is, you know, if somebody told Guy, hey, sorry, you somehow need to figure out how to get your ass to Konoha in like a day from Suna, deal with it. He could probably figure it out, right? But even in pretty dire situations, characters are still taking time to rest and recuperate. And even then, when they gotta get back to their own village, right, they're just kind of like, you know, look at how they start off. They're just walking. They're not running. They're not sprinting. They're not dashing. They're not using like any of those movement techniques. Guy does this because he's Guy, but the rest of them are just kind of existing, right? Because they're fucking human beings. Okay, so this is gonna probably be the last section that I go over tonight. This is the arc where, or maybe I'll try to do the heavy arc as well, if we have time. But this is the section where the characters are going to the Tenchi Bridge. So this is right after the Kazekage rescue arc. And in this particular context over here, they have to get to a rendezvous point where Sasori is going to, they're going to pretend to be Sasori meeting up with Kabuto for intel on the Akatsuki. And they have to make it there within a specified amount of time, because obviously there's a planned rendezvous, and if they miss it, then they miss their opportunity to get the intel. So this is from the scene with Sasori before, when he's fighting with Chiyo and Sakura. He gives them a tip that the event is going to happen 10 days from now. So obviously they have to get back to Konoha and get ready for the mission, and then head out in order to rendezvous with him in time. Okay, so going back to Konoha, and by the way, if anybody has questions about like what chapters these come from, they're all here. They're written above. I should have found a way to just like make them display the file name, but they're all up here. And if you have questions either now or after the stream, leave me a comment and I can help you find them if you want to read them yourselves in context. So they have a conversation with Tsunade, and Tsunade at this point says there are only 6 days left until the rendezvous. Okay, so 3 or 4 days depending on, so it took them 3 days probably to travel back, assuming that they like rested and supplied up before they headed out. So that makes sense. Okay, so Kakashi's out of commission. This is why they need to get Tenzo and Sai and all that. So they get ready for the mission. Notice that Tenzo, aka Yamato, says that we're going to be deploying almost immediately. Okay, that means that they leave with, I think, 5 days left. I think he says that in a second. So they get ready to go. And again, look at how they traveled this time, though. This is interesting. So on the trip from Konoha, on the trip from Suna to Konoha, they had big-ass packs on their back. And this was just like a few days ago, diegetically, right? This was literally a few days ago, 3 or 4 days ago. They had big-ass packs on their back. They just did this. Now they have completely different packs in their back. First of all, Sakura has like nothing. She has this pouch, and she has a knife, and then that's it. Naruto has actually a really cool but more modern looking backpack, and same with Sai, and their pouches on their rear as well. So that's interesting. I wonder if we'll learn why that is. This is some nice world building. We're heading out from Konoha, and you can see like a trod path, a maintained path. So it means that the travel is probably a little bit easier. Nice, gentle, sloping hills over there. Forest, but not a dense forest. It's pretty sparse, so relatively easy to travel through. No super thick brush. I mean, obviously there's bushes and shit here, but you could potentially take a shortcut across there, no problem if you're a shinobi. But look at how they're traveling. They're just walking, right? They're not dashing around. They're not going at the fucking speed of light or whatever. They're just walking. They're just walking along a road. And Yamato here specifically says you only have 5 days to get to the Tenchi Bridge. Okay? So they have a specific deadline. They have a specific time limit that they need to get there by. For context, by the way, actually, let me use this map over here because it doesn't have as many drawings on it. For context, the Tenchi Bridge is like here, and they're traveling from here to here. They have 5 days to go from here to here. Okay, to look at the sketched on map, it's from here to here, over here. There's the Tenchi Bridge, right? So here to here, 5 days to do it. Okay, let's look a little bit more at how they managed to get that done. Okay, moving out from over here. Here we have Sakura at a hotel. She's lying in bed. She's just waking up, so she has slept overnight. They're in some sort of a more modern city. It looks like an onsen, maybe. Would make sense near the water. Nice little bit of world building here too. There's a nice river over here, metal bridge. There's a little village up here. Somebody had a lot of fun putting this together, I'm sure. This is a nice little slice of a village. And she wakes up leisurely in the morning, and she's fine. Okay, so that's the first night. The second night, they're out on the road, and what happens? Tenzo says, let's make a house. He uses house no jutsu, and now they're sleeping indoors in safety, and they're sleeping again. So the second night, they're sleeping, right? So they don't wait till the last minute. They are slowly working their way up and taking a rest every step along the way. So at the very least, you have to acknowledge, I think, that this means that shinobi in this universe do benefit from rest. They do benefit from sleep. I mean, obviously they do. You shouldn't have to explain this to anybody, but because it will come up in power scaling conversations, they do better when they rest. The default, the preferred, the normal way to exist as a shinobi in this universe is to sleep when you are traveling and to eat and to rest, even if you're on a critical mission. It's important. So these are still human beings. They can force themselves through it if they need to, but they still have like human desires and bodily functions and shit like that. Tenzo also specifically mentions that they're going to be taking part of the time to exercise and to go through drills and to do all that shit. Okay, so as part of their journey, they're going to be doing partner pairing exercises. I've cut it out here because I'm just focusing on the geography. But if you go to around 289, he actually shows some of those exercises. They're actively fighting, okay, each other. So they're training. They're stopping to train. And then finally, in 5 days, they get to Tenchi Bridge, which is where this is the bridge. And then this is what it looks like from above. So, two really important things that I want to convey here. First of all, is look at the shit and look at how it's a giant fucking chasm in the ground. Right? That's why there needs to be a bridge over it, because there's a giant chasm in the ground. Now, if you are trying to take the most direct path to a given location and you're a shinobi and you come across a chasm like this and there's no bridge, you can just jump over it. We see characters do that in this fight, or fly over it in the case of Sai. There's nothing stopping a shinobi, even like a Chuunin or whatever, from jumping this distance. It's not that far for shinobi. But if there's no bridge there and you're on a horse, then you better hope you can jump over it with a fucking horse on your back, because otherwise it's not going anywhere. You have to walk all the way around in order to cross it. So if you're using horse calculations in order to... Sorry, I should stop tearing this cloth. If you're using horse calculations in order to determine how fast you get somewhere, keep in mind, based on the terrain, that like if this bridge was not here, this horse would be fucked. And we have to go all the way around until it found some new means of ingress. Shinobi never has to worry about that. Shinobi can simply jump around it. So the benefits of shinobi travel versus horse travel are not just relegated to the sheer mileage or whatever. Okay. Saria says, you must rest or else you will die. Jiraiya Sensei. I mean, like, going back to chapter 90, I think. I mean, I feel like we talk about this every stream, but I'm pretty sure Ebisu says something along the lines of, great panel with the ninja dogs here, damn, I love them all. Says something along the lines of, yeah, here, right? Naruto says, I ate my ramen and I slept well, I'm at full power. I mean, that's all you need, right? Like, if a character is going into combat, you want them to be at full power if at all possible. And Naruto makes it extremely clear, and specifically Ebisu, his professor, makes it extremely clear that eating food and sleeping are what enable you to be at your full power. Now, obviously, there's some exceptions, like, I don't think Hidan needs to eat to be at full power. I don't think Kakazu needs to eat to be at full power. But, I mean, Naruto does. So, if nothing else, then you need to, your body needs to be reasonably healthy to be able to create stamina at a reasonable level. Yeah. Over here. So, yeah, so, okay, so the whole point of that was to try to illustrate, again, like, how far do you think people are going in what amount of time? So, we're talking about the Naruto characters going from Konoha to the Hidden Grass Village. Now, if they were going there in a straight line as fast as possible, then we could use calculations along the lines of, like, the horse-type stuff that we did before. But here's the thing. They're not doing that. They're not going in a straight line. They're not going without resting. They are actively sleeping overnight for multiple nights confirmed. Probably all 4 nights, but at least 2 confirmed. They are walking slow as fuck during the day, just walking along the paths during the day. They are stopping to fight each other, you know, to do sparring training, and then presumably like recover from that during the day. And yet they're still able to get here within 5 days. So they go from nearly the center of their country to a completely different country and cross the border in 5 days, while traveling maybe at a walking pace, maybe sometimes at a jogging pace half the days, some of the days. So how far do you really think that is? Like, how far do you think that they can go? How much ground do you think that they actually cover in that amount of time? Does it make sense for this to be 172,000 miles away if the distance between this and this can be walked to with frequent breaks and stopping in 5 days? Does that connect whatsoever? I don't think so. Obviously, it's possible that they sprinted or dashed or did something like that for part of the travel. If you go back and read those chapters, I'm sure you'll find some chances or some instances of them sprinting or dashing around. I mean, like here when they're chasing after Kabuto, they're probably running. Well, we don't really see it, but I think it's fair to say that they do. You know, it's possible. But also, they're just kind of like ambling along. So feel free to challenge me on that, but I think that gives a decent metric. Now, right after this, of course, Sai takes off with Orochimaru and Kabuto, and they start chasing them to go find Sasuke. Now, I'm not exactly sure where their hideout is over here, but it's worth noting that they do travel over a body of water, walking along the water. They take time. Kabuto takes time to sharpen his knives and all that. They take time to read the book. And then they cross over into this land of like rock and desert, and like the trees are all dried up. Okay, so now they've transitioned into a completely different biome. As far as I can tell, this is still the same day, right? So where do you think that puts them? Well, we have Amegakure, and the territory of Amegakure seems to me to be a little bit like harsher and rough. It seems to me to be a little bit more modern, especially once you get towards the Amegakure, not just the village or the country itself. So if I had to guess, I would say that they probably, since they were at the bridge anyway, that they probably just like went up here and are now somewhere in the land of Earth, because that fits the topography. Where we're there, yeah. So I think they're probably like just inside the land of Earth, which means that if that's the case, they can travel from here to here in a couple hours. Right? So that's another little piece of information, another little factoid, so to speak, that brings us a little bit closer, constrains, constricts, limits the size of the world just a little bit more clarity, right? Okay, that was the I think the second to last one. The big one here is the Taka, and I'll get to that in a second. This one over here is just, there's not so much to go off of. All we know about this is that like somewhere in this arc, you know, fucking Kakazu and Hidan they intercept Naruto. Naruto comes from the village, obviously, and like they run into Shikamaru. So I don't know. I wanted to include this just for context. I'm not exactly sure how to fit it in. I think that, you know, obviously Hidan and Kakazu start from over here when they're going after Yugito, and then they show their map and they kind of come down here and they're checking off things. They're going through the land of fire. They seem to be going through the area around here. They get intercepted around here. 6 days pass, then they start meandering to the land of fire, and then it seems like maybe they're somewhere around here. I know that Sage said they fought in the mountain graveyard. No, they're not in the mountain graveyard. They're very explicitly within Konoha. But let's just, well, in my opinion, they are. Let's just say that somehow they wound up in the mountain graveyard per Sage's video, and they were just on the border. So let's say they were like right over here. If that's the case, then that means that like they were able to get like Shikamaru, when he shadow possessioned Hidan, he was able to get Hidan from the mountain graveyard, from this, or the land of iron, right? It's the land of iron. He was able to get them from the tip of the land of iron all the way here to the Nara estate in order to, well, hang on. Let's clarify. Let's see what he actually says. He goes on he shadow possessions Hidan, and then he says, let's just go for a pleasant stroll. Now, obviously, they're like dashing. Okay, you can see the motion blur and all that. But then once he gets to that location, he says that there is your grave. This forest is a special place even within the land of fire. Only members of my clan are allowed in here. All others are forbidden from even setting foot on this ground. So I don't know if it's actually the Nara clan estate, but it's a forest that sort of belongs to him. It's shit. Or belongs to his clan. So where do you think that puts him? again, there's not necessarily one specific answer, but if it's a forest that sort of belongs to the Nara clan, or especially to the Nara clan, wouldn't it make sense for it to be somewhere around this location? So if they were actually fighting in the mountain graveyard, that means that Shikamaru was able to run from here to here in 5 minutes while shadow possessing Hidan. It's more likely that they're like somewhere around here, right? And then the forest is somewhere like that. Oh, okay. One sec. Okay, so I think this is the last bit that I will do for tonight. Should take about 20 minutes to get through. Let me just reset the music. Oops, sorry, it's too loud. Okay. So, last bit over here. Going back to the Land of Waves, you may remember that at a certain point, Sasuke meets this dude called Suigetsu. I'm not 100% sure where the hideout for Orochimaru is, but it seems like it's probably in Otogakure. It's probably in the Land of Sound, or somewhere up here. So what Sasuke does is he starts from over here. Sorry, it says Shikamaru doesn't have the stamina for that run unless he's the speed of light, unless he's MFTL plus plus plus. But yeah, no, you're right. He doesn't. We have a discrete time limit on the amount of time that he can use a shadow possession. Like at max strength, he can use it for 5 minutes. So he can. Yeah, that's one other little yardstick that we can use. Like Shikamaru runs from here to X location within 5 minutes, right? So if he can actually do that, then unless he's running at the speed of sound with, what's his name? Even if he's running at the speed of sound, like with Hidan, like in tow, like shadow possession, that would just mean that the distance between these two places is really, really small. Right? So one of those things doesn't add up. Okay, so yeah, Sasuke is probably starting from somewhere around here. Could be in one of the other hideouts, but it seemed like Orochimaru's main base, so I'm guessing that it's probably around here. And as he travels, he is going down with Suigetsu first to get his the Executioner's Blade, and then once he gets the Executioner's Blade, he's stopping at the southern hideout and then going to the northern hideout. So let's see how that all plays out. So they walk over past Konoha to the Great Naruto Bridge. They're standing over here, and they're gonna go across the bridge and pick up the or actually, if he's starting over here, that means that he's starting in the Land of Waves and then going to Konoha like this. So maybe he didn't start from up there. Maybe it's a little bit different. Yeah, I guess it would make more sense if it was like down here. Not sure about that. Anyway, just something to keep in mind. They walk over and they pick up the Executioner's Sword. Then from here, they say, like, they're still kind of chatting with each other. And then they just sort of start walking across the water, like this calm body of water. Just walking there. Okay, so I think that what's happening here is that Sasuke gets to the Land of Waves. I think it could still be over here. I think that might make more sense, but let's just say it's like over here, over here. Then they together walk over to pick up Karin somewhere around here, right? And it looks like they're doing this all on the same day. Now, I don't know if it was the same day to go from the hideout over there, but it seems like it's the same day to go from from the base there. But I think it's the same day to go from the hideout, the first place where they get the sword, to the first hideout. So once they've done that, they then obviously have to get to this completely different location to get Jugo later on. And in order to do that, they pick up Karin. Karin says, like, the northern hideout is still a long way away, etc. She's kind of complaining about how far they have to do. And then Suigetsu also says, hey, how about we take a break? Suigetsu, we can't stop all the time, blah, blah, blah. So this is where it kind of gets interesting. You have to, I think, decide whether or not you think that they are doing all of this in one day, or whether they're stopping for breaks and we just never see it. And if they are doing this in one day, how far are they going? Because the northern hideout, the southern hideout, etc., the topographically obviously looks vastly different from the previous place that we were in. Even we're even given little hints over here that they're in a more wooded area. So it's probably not the Land of Waves. It's probably further away, right? That would make sense for Orochimaru's designs, so to speak. So how far away do we think it is? Is it up here? Is it back up into the land of rivers, into the land of wind? Probably not land of wind, right? But at any rate, it seems like Sasuke is able to go from here to here, or at least from somewhere around here, depending on where the hideout is, to here, here, and do all of that over the course of, what do you think? Is it a day? Is it a week? It's probably not a month. That seems too much, right? So again, hard to know for sure, but here is a character who is just kind of walking along, just kind of slowly walking along. And if you think about other things that are happening around this time in the story, think about how much time is elapsing with other characters doing shit. How much time is this really taking? And he's able to get to this place over here as well, also just kind of walking along. And getting here, it's hard to know for sure exactly where this is, but given that he says it is a place where his clan used to store munitions, it feels like it probably would be somewhere near Konoha Gakure, right? It wouldn't really make sense for his clan to be storing ammunition in another fucking country. So now he's gone over here, he's collected cotton, he's gone up somewhere around here to get Jugo, and now he's back over here somewhere near Konoha, and he's maybe doing this all in a day. If it's not a day, how long do you think it is? How long do you think the events going on in the background are taking in order to have this sort of thing going on? I don't know for sure, but it's worth noting that this guy can just kind of like walk across the country like casually. There's no light speed travel over here as far as we can see. They're just complaining about having to walk too long, right? These aren't like incredible endurance athletes, so he gets just like a little punk. I mean, obviously Sasuke is superior, but still. Again, this is not concrete, verbatim stated mathematical proof. This is just trying to establish an overall size, scope, scale, and consistency of the world building in and of itself. So, going on from there, oh hey, Darth Magog. Sorry, I think picked the worst time to try to swallow and talk at the same time. My bad. It's good to see you. How was dinner? Hope everything's going okay on your end. Script writing. Are you writing a script for a new video? That'd be cool. So Kakashi and these folks have established a perimeter of 5 kilometers from which they're going to head out and survey the land. The way that this is going to work is they're going to explore a 5 kilometer radius, see what they can find, and then kind of come back and, or is it 10 kilometer? No, it's 5 kilometers. And then kind of come back and share what they have found. So going back to our commentary on the Forest of Death, I think this is kind of interesting to reconcile with that, right? Again, Kakashi should be the speed of light here, right? Because he dodged Water Fang Bullet, and that was the speed of light, right? So it should take him less than the blink of an eye in order to cover a 5 kilometer radius. You should be able to go back and forth across the 5 kilometer radius to cover the entire area of the circle that would be described by that radius within like a fraction of a second, like a tiny fraction of a second. But no, they don't do that. They split up and they combine their forces and they search different areas in order to increase the scope. So again, like the easy response to this is, well, he's just like not being speed of light here. Yeah, you're right. He's not. You're right. This is another example of characters who are not taking advantage of speed of light movement. Wouldn't it be convenient if he could use the speed of light to, enhance his scouting in this very critical situation? But of course, it doesn't happen. He doesn't seem to have that ability. Also worth noting that these characters, they are critically searching for Sasuke. It's a high-pressure situation. They need to find him, and yet they are just walking along. So shinobi in character consistently don't always sprint places, even if it's urgent, even if there's a lot to take in. Right? They are simply walking along. I do like the details of the, these poles and like all the intricate details that, for world building purposes, that Kishimoto put in with all these, like, they almost look like bandages up the poles, and these scars are like rust marks. He took the time, despite everything else going on in the story, to like put in all this detail into the grass, making grass of different sizes, different patches over there, as well as, just making these poles kind of look reasonable. It kind of slopes off to the side, which implies that there's a further path over here, some sort of telecommunication or something like that. It's a utility pole. in the Naruto universe. This is doing world building in and of itself. Included this mostly just to kind of show the terrain in the background, get a sense of like how feasible or difficult it might be to traverse it. Obviously, if you're running across this open field with a horse, it's going to be way easier than going up these mountains. So again, you have to consider, if you're using horse math, where exactly is the horse going? It's not just about the numbers, it's about the context, right? So, Saria says, Suigetsu is the naked waterman you wouldn't understand. Yes, all hail the naked waterman. He's actually, I think, underrepresented in the lore. He's, or in the online discussion. So here's something, I don't know if you're still around, Dr. Strangle, no worries either way, but I think I will probably run this by you at some point, because I'm wondering if we can look at this and use this as a way of getting, like, the curvature of the Earth. I don't think so. I think this is another one of those, like, camera lens trickery things, because it seems a little too, I don't know, intuitively it feels a little too aggressive, but over here maybe, like, you can see some of the curvature is delineated over there. So there might be some things over here, and this is just a general sort of send out to the community in general, or like I guess a more of a response to Sage's comment about how like the curvature of the Earth calcs are inconsistent. Well, yeah, but like how many have you looked at really? Like here's another one that we could potentially look at. Yeah, they might be inconsistent, but we could still start to find some sort of general consensus. Like if we look at a bunch of them, find an average or something, right? So here's another potentially useful metric over here. I believe this is the same city that we saw before with the cats in them. So over the course of that amount of time, Sasuke has traveled from here to here. Now, we are specifically told that from Dedra that the blast itself will cover a 10-kilometer radius. So how to interpret that is a little bit tricky because I think the intuitive response is to say that, like, okay, from here to here is 10 kilometers, so this should be 20 kilometers in diameter. But I'm not sure, and I'll explain why in a second, if he means that, like, it's just the terrain being destroyed that will cover 20 kilometers, or if it's the, like, it'll be visible from 20 kilometers if the shock waves, etc., will also be part of the 20 kilometers calculation. But that being said, this gives us a decent amount of perspective for how far away these characters are, right? So I don't know how to do this exactly, but if you were to take a calc that this is 20 kilometers, then try to rotate it, how far away would that put you from the camera's POV? Like 30 kilometers, something like that, 40, something like that? Okay, if that's the case, then you can use that to potentially try to estimate how far away these characters are from the explosion, and then you can get a sense of how far away they are from Sasuke. So let's just throw out a ballpark here. Let's just say that they're 50 kilometers away. It might be less than that. It's probably less than that, but, you know, if this is 20, this is 40, let's just say that they're 50 based on the size. And obviously you should calc this if you want to get precise about it, but based on the size of the explosion in the distance. Okay? Even Karin says that's about where Sasuke is. Okay? So let's just see where that takes us. Let's see if we can find any more information based on that. Okay. So this is after the explosion. Sasuke is resting. Jugo has bird. And they're just talking about hunting people out, using the birds to do some scouting. But specifically, you know, Naruto and all of them run towards the epicenter of the explosion. So they're all extremely eager to get there. They think that potentially, actually this is sort of out of order here, but they think that potentially that Sasuke is going to be there. Right? And so they need to get to him as soon as possible. Maybe the Akatsuki are attacking him. It's critical. This is like, you know, important shit, and they're trying to get there as fast as possible. But in the time that it takes them to run there, Sasuke has already had a chance to, like, get himself to a local... Well, actually, let me make sure it's not out of order. 364, 10... Yeah, so he's had a chance to get out of the snake, to reunite with Karin and Jugo, and to find a hotel and get in it and change his clothes and recover. And over the course of all that time, Naruto and Sasuke and Tenzo and everybody else are Naruto and Sakura and Tenzo and everybody else are en route to the location, right? So they don't get there before he does. Obviously, he teleports out of there with Manda, but still, it takes them longer to get there, including Lightspeed Kakashi, to get there than it does for him to check in the hotel and, like, take a bath or whatever he's doing. So again, like, does it make more sense for Kakashi to be Lightspeed, or does it make more sense that, like, they take a few minutes at least to travel 50 kilometers? They might take longer than a few minutes, especially given the tension, given everything here that's happening. Doesn't it make sense that there might be, like, wouldn't it just totally fucking destroy all the tension in the room if these characters could essentially teleport anywhere they want on the planet? Like, seriously, isn't it much more consistent with the overall story and narrative and, like, the build up and release of all that to say that they are a little bit slower and it takes them like a few minutes to run these kilometers? So I think that's mostly what I wanted to talk about for tonight. Let me just scan through here. Here's another instance of them like searching for Sasuke, and this is as fast as they're going. You can maybe gauge how fast by the motion blur in the background. This is a nice piece of world building, I think. Just getting some background from Amegakure. Looks like there's mechanical birds here, which I think is cool. I've never seen that before, but I guess there are some sort of like primitive robotics in Amegakure, or like automatons rather, which is really cool. Obviously, like, he manages to meet up with Itachi the same day, someplace else in Konoha, I'm not exactly sure where. Just wanted to include this to show off the terrain. Really interesting design here with the the stone girders here. And this sort of striated mountain. It's very interesting. Over here, meanwhile, Naruto and all of them are in such a different location that it's... Look at these massive trees that are there. I think they're quite different from these. Covered in moss, with almost something that looks like palm trees interspersed. This feels like kind of a fantastical location as well. And then of course we have this great shot from here. So here's another little piece of scaling. Hinata says specifically she sees something 10 kilometers ahead. Oh, yeah. Here we go. So they're searching for Sasuke. They think that they are going to come into that Sasuke is potentially going to come into contact with Itachi. It's extremely important that they get there as soon as possible. And here's what happens. Hinata says they are 10 kilometers away, and Naruto says full speed ahead. So he's going as fast as he can, obviously without going into the KCM state or whatever. This is them going at full speed. Kiba's still sniffing things out, still holding on a conversation, still saying darn it. And is Kakashi with them? Kakashi's with them. Okay? And it still takes them a few minutes to get there. So, again, does it make sense for any of these characters to be the speed of light, especially Kakashi, when they are saying, I'm going at full speed, and they are not there like in an instant, when we know for a fact that it's 10 kilometers away? If any of them are even remotely close to the speed of light, like remotely, then they should be there in a fraction of a second. But that's not happening. So, I don't know how much clearer you can get, right? Like a specific kilometer distance value, a specific explicit statement that they're moving as fast as possible, and it still takes them a while to get there. How long? I don't know. It's not fucking like microsecond though. I'll tell you that much. Oh, I forgot this from the Land of Waves. This is just kind of showing the construction and all the tools and equipment and things that are involved in bridge building. Also the machinery over there that's being used as part of it. Probably Tazuna's bringing some of this stuff with him into Konoha. So I think that's probably how I'll end it for tonight. This is just stuff that I included for variety and to show like the scale of the different terrain, stuff like that. Maybe some curvature that we could do over here. I think this is camera angle trickery again. Yeah, nice world building. There is one other big thing to talk about, which is just like the war arc and the the war arc and the travel to the 5 Kage summit. But I think I'll leave that for next time. I'll do that stuff first, and then we'll do the solar system simulator after that. Because at this point, I think, you know, hopefully I've achieved this goal. Not sure, we'll see. But hopefully I've achieved, the goal I was looking to achieve was basically just to try to go through the series and look for some different examples of characters traveling between different places and try to examine the actual, like, reality of what it's like for characters in this world to travel between those places. What are the constraints? What are the tools? What are the routes? What are the overall like in context, when things really get dire, when things really get serious, how do they actually act? And how does that fit in with our understanding of things from things like the Resident novels and all that? I think that it's perfectly reasonable to be able to consolidate a statement like Kakashi traveled there day and night and got there as quickly as possible, with the understanding that Kakashi probably slept on occasion and ate on occasion. I actually don't think those two things are contradictory, even though it kind of sounds that way on the surface, because looking at shinobi in context, they can travel through, in critical moments with high degrees of time pressure and still find time to sleep and eat. They can be superhuman and have superhuman abilities, but still have some human limitations. And when you consider the topography, the terrain, just the way that the world is designed and everything that goes into that, it's really, I think, like, just kind of rude to assume that you can just travel in a direct line anywhere in the world from any two locations. So hopefully that provides some additional insight. Of course, a lot of what I was doing tonight was just giving guesstimates and giving vague ideas of overall constraints as opposed to specific calcs. I will try to provide some more calcs next time, see how that goes, and hopefully we can have some fun messing around with the simulator and learn some basic astronomy stuff as well. I'm really excited to see that as well. Darth Megog says, nicely done, John. Good to see critical thinking apply. Thank you so much. Really do appreciate it. I'm super excited to share this stuff with you guys, and it's always fun to kind of get together and share ideas. So hopefully it was enjoyable. Well, good luck on the script, Darth Magog. I wish you the best in bringing whatever you're working on to life. Thank you, everybody who stopped by and participated. If you are watching this in... sorry, I'm getting kind of tired. If you're watching this back on the VOD, feel free to send me any questions or comments or concerns that you might have. Also, feel free to hit me up on Discord. My Discord name is just the same as the stream name or YouTube channel name, just John the Maven. I'd be happy to invite you to the Discord server as well if you'd like. It's a chill place to just hang out and just chat. I might not respond immediately because I tend to leave Discord off for most of the day. Otherwise, I just get addicted to be on Discord all day chatting. But I do try to check it once a day, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thank you for the great ideas for the streams and all that. Yeah, thank you so much for stopping by, Fod. It was really great to get a chance to chat with you. Really glad you enjoyed the stream. And I think I'm just going to head out now. But yeah, thank you, everybody, and have a great week. Bye-bye.